All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Show this out, show this out, show this out. All right, it's Friday night. Love one. Welcome, Reese. Welcome, Risen Nation. I see you guys there. Right? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, it's Friday night. Love one. And if you're in the United States of America, today is Black Friday, which means that most of the people in the United States are out shopping today because yesterday was Thanksgiving. Oh, and let me take down this banner over here off of the overlay here. Let me find where my banners are and take that down. Nope, that's the background. I apologize. There we go. Running a little bit crazy, trying to get everything. Let me put myself up into full screen there. Okay. Trying to get everything running today because it's Black Friday and everything's crazy in the world. So I was running, almost was a little bit late trying to get in here. Paulie, welcome. Okay, share this out to everybody, please. I shared it to a few places while the video was playing there, and I didn't put anything in the chat. I forgot to put this into the descriptions. I'm going to put it in the chat right here, and then I'll also put it up later on for the description. I was going to add it, forgot about it. I didn't even put the star date today. Normally, like last time I started putting the star date, but I forgot to put the description, the link to my book in the description. For those of you who are listening on the MP4 broadcast, you guys can see that. Unless you're on Instagram, then you can't see that. I'm going to go over to Instagram and pop that into the Instagram chat as well for people to see there. But the rest of the world, wherever you are around the world, you will be able to see things just fine. But if you're listening online, you'll have to wait until the commercial comes on, or you can just Google or whatever search engine you use, DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you use, the reality about reality, returning to the old ways. Every time I say that to people, there's a group of you out there that hears the reality of reality. It's just like the word of. People think that it's spelled with a V and not with an F. That's a trick that people use when they say how many F's are in this sentence, and they put the word of in there like 3 times, and people just go past it because the F sounds like a V phonetically, so people forget that it is of. For whatever reason, the reality about reality, returning to the old ways, people hear the reality of reality, returning to the old ways. Even if I type it to them, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Chandra, welcome. Penny, welcome. So the reality about reality, I can put that up on the screen for you, right? I have a banner with the same thing so that you guys can take a look at that, right? Put that up on the screen right there. That's for the Amazon link. That's worldwide around the world. You can go to Amazon, whatever, .eu, whatever it is, whatever country that you're in, and you can type in the reality about reality, returning to the old ways. And you can find that and put that in the description. Make sure that you put the reality about reality, and then put returning to the old ways as the subtitle, or look up my name or both, and you'll find that. My book is on sale worldwide, so I will be doing commercials for it, for visuals and also for hearing, but it doesn't give you the link to the website. Or you could go to authorhouse.com, which is the publisher that I published my book through. Go to authorhouse.com and then go to their library of books, and then type in my name and or the reality about reality, returning to the old ways. You can either buy it directly from my publisher, who will ship it to everywhere in the world, or you can get it off Amazon or anywhere else online for that matter. So if you don't have Amazon shipped to you in whatever country you're in, there's websites I had no idea they were even up. When I do a search online in different search engines, Google and the such, I find it in languages that I don't even understand, on websites that I have no idea what the website is. So the book is on sale worldwide. You just got to look for it on whatever platform that you're on, and you'll find it. Okay, so it's Friday. It's Black Friday. If you guys are in the United States, that means that today is the first day that that retail companies, all retail companies in the United States or American-based retail companies, and a lot of retail companies that are not American-based who rely on American money selling their products, today is the day that they actually turn a profit. So literally the entire year they're underwater and not turning a profit until today, from today until the end of the year. So literally a month of, literally 32 days, 34 days, depending on where we're at, because today is the 30th, right? So literally then 31 days to January. So in that month time period, of December, late November and early December, that's when companies make their money. I used to work in retail. I was a retail manager and a district manager for a long time. I was retail manager for like 15 years and a district manager for a couple of years. And that's how you make all your money. That's that time of year. So most people on the planet are running around trying to get deals right now. If you're in America, you're running around, or you have been today, trying to get deals on Black Friday. And they don't really give you really good discounts. You just think that they are. They give you like 20 or 30% off. And, that's not a lot of money unless you spend over $100. It's not a lot of money, right? 25% off of $100 is $25. So if you're spending $100 to get $25, you're doing it wrong, because they duped you into paying $75 for a product that was probably cost them about $15 to manufacture or purchase to sell to you. Not a joke, right? So the way it is, the markup is insane. And the outlets used to, back in the day, you could go to the outlets. There's like an outlet mall that you can go to, and they used to sell it to you at the prices that they sold the stuff to corporations. Well, corporations sued them and because people were going to them and buying them. Like, I don't know how much blue jeans are now, but they were over $100. And if you went to the actual company who manufactured them, they used to sell it to you for the same price that they would sell it to companies who sell it in a store. So you would get a pair of jeans that were $100 for about $12. Well, people stopped going to the retail stores, so the retail companies got pissed off. So now if you go to the outlets, they're the same price. They'll give you like a 30% discount, 10% discount. That's it. It's just like morningsave.com. They lie to you. It's a marketing gimmick that they lie to you about. And they, like when they're on television, I watch them on TV all the time. And I still have a pretty good eye for what things cost. If I went on The Price is Right, I would probably win, because I was really good at that. Being an entrepreneur in the companies that I worked for before they all went automated, some of us actually memorized price points of everything. And even then you kind of do anyway, even if you're not involved in the buying. I used to be involved in the buying of products for stores. And you get to know what things cost companies and what deals you get as a corporation, as a company. When you buy things individually, it costs you more than if you're buying for a whole chain. And you get big discounts from the companies who manufacture them, because you have to make money too. So they make it for pennies, like a leather jacket, say, that goes for nowadays probably $500 to $1,000 for a leather jacket. The company who manufactured that leather jacket probably cost them about $2.50, if that, to make the leather jacket. And then they would sell it to the company who's going to sell it at about $35, and then that company turns around and sells it to you for $500. Not a joke. It's just the way it works. And you don't know it. You just pay for it. The only time that came through for people to see, and it was short-lived, was back when Barack Obama was the president, and they had that manufactured crash of the housing market that screwed up the economy worldwide, and they had to bail everybody out. And nobody was spending any money. They were hoarding it across the world in the United States out of fear. So they had to lower the prices. So literally a $500 leather jacket the next day was going for $125. And people were running out and buying it. And people were like, they must be losing money. Ha, ha, ha. I'm like, they paid $25 for that leather jacket. So they're still making $125 off of you. Pure profit. You just aren't aware of it because you see the markdown from $500 to $125. So the markups are sometimes 300%, 100%, 300% markups. I remember when I was in retail working for a craft store, and then I'll get into the law of one, but you'll see where I'm going with this. When we were talking to the district manager and he was walking around the store and talking about different things, he walked over to this end cap that's at the front of the aisle, right? And we had little candle votives, little candles, a little teeny round candle that's about that big, and the little glass votive that you put the candle in. We were selling those at 25 cents a candle and 50 cents for the little glass holder. So the whole thing would cost you 75 cents plus tax. And he said, I want to make sure that in all of our stores, this end cap is full at all times. I want it to be overstocked the way this end cap is, full with a bunch of stock on top at all times, because this is the highest markup we have on any product in our store. And people who didn't know that, I smiled because I knew what the markup was. People who didn't know that said, "Are you serious? That little candle, we're selling it for 25 cents." He says, "Do you know how much we pay for that candle individually?" And the guy was like, "No." And he looked at anybody know? And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "How much do we pay for that candle?" I said, "We pay 3 cents for that candle and 5 cents for the candle votive. And we sell the candle for 25 cents, which means we make 22 cents off of every single candle. And people, when they come in, they don't buy one. They usually buy a dozen or more. And because they're like, they're only 25 cents, I could buy 4 for $1. And then they grab up like a case of them at a time. So they end up spending $20, $30 on candles. And we paid 3 cents and 5 cents. So 8 cents total. And we sell it to you for 75 cents plus tax. Do you see? That's a big markup. That's akin to a $25 leather jacket that they paid for $25, selling it to you for $750. Okay. It's a large markup. It's over 300% markup. A lot of products, most products are that way, and you just don't know that. Like a car, you go to a car dealership and they sell you a vehicle, recommended, retail price is, $75,000. That company for that car probably paid $100 for it from the manufacturer, maybe 200. Okay. Not a joke. You don't know that. You don't know that until you look into it, or you know somebody that is in that industry. Right. So Dale, welcome. Who did I miss? Did I miss anybody? Polly, did I say hi to you? Polly, I don't know if I did. Hi, Polly. Hi, Cassie. Hi, Dale. And I did have my glasses off. Okay, so I was rambling. Please share this out. Rambling about Black Friday and profits turning. But Raw is going to get into, we're on session 65 still, or 66. Where I backed up to question 28 or 29, I think. And there's like 35 or 36 maximum in this session. So we'll finish the session and start the next session. So I'm not exactly sure where Raw is at, but it kind of, well, you'll see that it'll pertain to what I'm talking about. Weirdly, Raw every week, for some reason, pertains to real life, like as if the universe is aware that I'm doing this, and the real life events that are happening on the planet seem to be the prior week or during that week in the week following me doing the show pertain to real life in a strange way that I've noticed even when I did the Law of One the first time and did all 106 sessions. That it was very serendipitous, like opening the Bible up to a certain, just open it up to thinking about something and just pulling the Bible open and then reading a passage, pointing your finger down and reading it, and you'll find that it's actually pertaining to what you were asking the question of in some way. And it's kind of freaky because the odds of that shouldn't be as high as they are, and the odds are kind of high that way in a weird way with a lot of things. In fact, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. He wrote a couple of books. He has like 4 books. Darian, he has like 4 books, and his books are all individual sayings on each page. And he literally wrote it that way, and has all these sayings. And he says, you ask a question of the universe and grab one of my books and just flip it open and point to a page and then read it. It's going to answer what you had to say. So some people can say, like with the horoscopes, to where they're generic and you read into it, but his were like a single saying that you couldn't read into it. You read it and it either answered what you were thinking about or it wouldn't. And he said more than 9 times out of 10, probably 99 out of 100 times, it was actually pertaining, which was really odd and weird. But he gave it that energy when he wrote it. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with the Law of One. I'm going to do a sound check here, let it play. You guys let me know if you can hear it okay, and I'll check the volume and then make sure you guys can hear it, so I don't sit here thinking you guys can hear the Law of One and not. And, if you don't tell me, wait a minute, I can't hear anything, then I don't know that. All right, let's start here.
66.29 Questioner. In a transition from 3rd to 4th density, we have 2 other possibilities other than the type that we are experiencing now. We have the possibility of a totally positively polarized harvest and the possibility of a totally negatively polarized harvest that I understand have occurred elsewhere in the universe many times. When there is a totally negatively polarized harvest, when a whole planet, that is, has negatively polarized and makes the transition from 3rd to 4th density, Does the planet have the experience of the distortion of disease that this planet now experiences prior to that transition? Ra, I am Ra. You are perceptive. The negative harvest is one of intense disharmony, and the planet will express this. 66.30 Questioner. The planet has a certain set of conditions prior to transition into fourth density, that is in late third density, and then the conditions are different in early fourth density. Could you give me an example of a negatively polarized planet and the conditions in late third density and early fourth density so that I can see how they change? Ra, I am Ra. The vibrations from third to fourth density change on a negatively oriented planet precisely as they do upon a positively oriented planet. With fourth density negative comes many abilities and possibilities of which you are familiar. The fourth density is more dense, and it is far more difficult to hide the true vibrations of the mind/body/spirit complex.
See, so people don't realize, and I've said this many times, right? The people that are in service to self gain certain abilities as they ascend on that side. They gain abilities and knowledge that if you're in service to others, you will not gain. And the knowledge that you gain in service to others and the abilities you gain in service to others, they will not gain and cannot. So people don't realize, they don't fathom the difference. They think that everything is universal and that everybody learns everything the same, and they just don't. Okay, your life path, whether you're in service to self or in service to others, determines the knowledge and abilities that you unlock and have downloaded for you to access. And it also then stifles the other side. The further down the dark path you go, according to, like say Yoda, when he said that, the further down the dark path you go, the less of the light you can see. That's not Yoda saying that. Okay. And vice versa, right? Or vice versa, but vice versa. So people don't actually understand the way people who are evil think, because it's beyond their capacity for rational thought. And it takes a certain person to be able to see that and understand that, or understand that. And that's why at one point I was going to I wanted to go to Quantico and join the FBI to be a profiler when I was in my late teens and early 20s, into my mid 20s. But by then I had tattoos already, and they were like, well, we can't take people with tattoos. And I was like, well, that's okay, because I'm already working for the Irish government now anyway, so I don't need you guys to have it. But I wanted to have that training. So I looked into it anyways, because the government was already trying to recruit me since I was 11, because I'm, able to do that sort of stuff empathically and code breaking and things like that. Many other things that they really wanted me for, especially at the time I was in college and I was going to be a physicist, which I have two nephews, one of which is probably going to go to work for the deep state. The other one probably won't, but he is Sheldon. He's smarter than all of the characters on that show. And he's just now 22. And his brother he's about 6 years older than him. But he's a little more self-serving, his attitude. So he'll probably go to work for the government in the capacity that they wanted me to go to work for them 35 years ago, 40 years ago now. Yeah, it was before that. It would have been 46 years ago when they tried to recruit me the first time, because I'm 57 right now, and I was 11 when they tried to recruit me. So he's probably going to end up doing that. And I tell this story when he went to Stanford and graduated. The day he graduated from Stanford, my brother, his father, picked him up. They went there for the ceremony, and they were going to dinner and, a big celebration for him for graduating. And he said to him, "Oh, now you can go to work for NASA, and you can work on, the space shuttle or the rockets." And my nephew said, "Dad, I fucking hate rockets." He was like, "Wait a minute, what? You hate rockets? Then why did you go through all of this to become this engineer that can work for NASA in the space program on rockets or the space shuttle or any of the stuff that they have?" And he said, "Because I want to know I want to work on the real technology." He says, do you honestly think that the best technology that we have, the best advancement that we have, is a rocket engine that Wernher von Braun created back in 1912, 1930s? That's the rocket engine that we're still using. but all other technology has gone to smartphones and computers, yet we're still dealing with the exact same engines. And the only way we can get into space is through the same rocket engine to get us out of orbit. He says, you think that's the best technology we have? He says, Dad, you're fooling yourself. There's a completely other technology that's evolved through past that, and they're not letting anybody know about it. That's the stuff I really want to work on. So he was aware. And that was, I don't know, he graduated like 5 years ago now. So I don't know what he's doing, right? Chances are he's working for the deep state already, because that's what he was wanting to do. And since he's self-serving, he'll fit right in there, and he'll know all the secrets, but he won't get to tell anybody about it. They wanted me to do the same thing. So, but I didn't want to do that. Once I realized what they were actually up to and, stealing technology and making everything into a weapon, I burned all my notes. At 11 years old, I was already going, nope, well, I got to get rid of all this stuff. And I burned everything and destroyed it into ash and put everything in my head. And from that point on, I never journaled anything unless I was doing it because I was getting paid for somebody. And then I would journal to make sure that I kept track of everything that I was doing, like an inventory. That actually benefited me throughout my life of doing that and keeping track of everything that I was doing and writing everything down minute by minute, hour by hour. And I would literally, somebody said something to me, I would write it down and I carried a little book in my pocket, and I would write it down as they told me to do it, and the time they told me to do it and who told me to do it, put it back in my little pocket or in my pocket or in my back pocket or whatever. That way, if anybody ever asked, I can say, well, this person did that, and I wrote this down right in front of them, so they'll have to lie to you and say that I didn't do it. And then, of course, everything was on cameras, right? So everywhere you went, in every office, and I'd go, you can see me on office, writing it down right in front of him. So he can't lie about that. So, Joanne, welcome. Okay, so I'm reading what Chandra said. I came to the realization lately how much I have worked for the government. It's so creepy. Yeah, if you have a government job, my brother has a government job. He works for FedEx, but it's a different kind of government job, but it is. FedEx is a government entity. People don't think that. They think it's a company that's not attached to the government. Federal Express, it's attached to the government, just like the U.S. Mail. If you work for the U.S. Mail, you are working for the United States government. It is owned and operated by them, right? It is not a separate entity. FedEx is not a separate entity. It's just being run like that, okay? But it is, in fact, working for the federal government of the United States. That's why it's called Federal Express. They didn't name it that. Why would they name that federal, which literally implies government? Why would they name the corporation that? There is no other companies that are called federal something, except for like Federal Savings and Loan. And when you look into it, it's because of the government, okay? The other ones are like USAA. And again, United States run military veteran loans and banking that is designed for, you have to be a military veteran or current person in the military or a spouse or son or daughter or somebody or granddaughter next to the line of succession of their family to bank there. You can't just walk in on the street if you've, I'm brand new to this country and I want to bank here. I've never joined the U.S. military or worked for the government and I want to bank here. They're like, sorry, you can't. Okay. So when people trace their job and find out how much that they are actually working for the government when they don't know they're working for the government, you would be surprised how many people actually work for the government and don't realize they are until you look into it, right? Okay, so here, where they're talking about, let me get back on point. Dawn was asking about the ascension, and I wanted to also mention, because I feel that it's important in case somebody finds this podcast and doesn't understand that when he was talking about density and saying that the fourth density is denser than the third. And how does that pertain to dimension? Dimensionality is this physical plane, okay? So in this physical place, we have a dense dimensional body, okay? As you start moving up spiritually, your physical body becomes less dense as you start transitioning into the realization that you are, in fact, an immortal soul. And that immortal spirit becomes more dense until eventually the physical body fades away completely and you are just energy. Okay, that doesn't happen in this life. It's not like I'm going to ascend and tomorrow I'm going to be energy. There was like in the episode of Star Trek or something, one of those Star Trek Deep Space Nine or SG-1 or one of those. No, that was SG-1 is Stargate. One of the Star Trek's series where people were evolving into energy and they would just spontaneously turn to energy. That's just not something that can happen. You don't go from 3D to 6D. You just don't do it. People are saying, we're going right into 12D. Those are people who have no idea what they're talking about. We're going right into 5D. You have no idea what you're talking about because you cannot skip going from 4D to 5D. You can't go from 3D to 5D without going through 4D. What you can do is in this third dimensional level, here in this physical dimension, there are layers like an onion that are almost unlimited, not quite, but almost, of every dimension. So you can go to the fourth or the fifth level of the third dimension, but you're not going to fourth dimension or fourth density or fifth dimension or fifth density without going to fourth density and dimension. You can't do that. From the perspective of time here in the third dimension, to get to 5D, actual 5 density, actual 5 dimension. Okay, that's not the I think, therefore I am. That's 3D. And when I know I have an immortal soul, that's 4D. And when I start experiencing things from that immortal soul, that's 5D. That is absolutely false. Absolutely not true. Okay. It is 5D thinking, but you're not all of a sudden, just because that's like saying if I take a picture, it's 2D. And if I use a video camera, it's 5D. No, it's 3D. Okay. It's not 5D just because it has motion now. So your knowledge and concept, or your knowledge of a concept, doesn't make you that concept. Okay. It does expand your consciousness to get to that concept, and you have to go through that step. But just knowing, I think, therefore I am, does get you from 2D being instinctive and then becoming self-aware. Then you do become a human. But the whole purpose of the humanoid and it being here is for you then to become unveiled and then realize, I'm not the thinking body. I'm not this place. I am something more than that. Then you have to discover that. Then you have to find where I fit in that. Then you have to move into that. That does mean that you're moving into 4D. Okay. But you can't just, it takes 7 to 10 lifetimes in 3D just to get the concept of past. I think therefore I am. 7 to 10 lifetimes before you can even, okay, so 10 lifetimes is approximately, what is that? 80 years per lifetime. Say you only live 60 years per lifetime. What 6 times 7 is 4 is, what is that? 400 or more than that. It's 4,000 years. Isn't that what that is? Right? Because 10 lifetimes, if you live for 100 years, is another 0. So it'd be 1,000 years. Okay. So it's like 400 and some odd years before you even get to the concept of becoming unveiled and I am the experiencer here. Okay. So you're not going to then jump. If it takes you almost 1,000 years to go from I'm just alive and I have self-worth to I am something above that and I'm the experiencer and I am the witnesser and that I am a co-creator. If it takes you almost 1,000 years to do that, what makes you think that you're going to, in one of those lifetimes down here, even if it's the last one, that you just spent 1,000 years to get to the concept of, to learn everything you need to know, to graduate into 4D, that you're going to then go into 5D, passing 4D? How long do you think it takes to go through 4D and everything you need to learn there before you can go to 5D? Okay. So everyone's like, we're going straight into 5D. We're going into 12D. And I'm just like, you don't even know what that D even stands for. Well, that's the dimension. Okay, dimension is physicality. You lose your physicality as you move up in density, as you evolve away from this physical plane, which is what you're supposed to do after you become self-aware. And it takes you 7 to 10 lifetimes, so almost 1,000 years, somewhere between 500 and 750 years minimum, to learn I am an immortal soul. And you think that from that you're going to graduate into 5D in one lifetime, which is maybe another 50 to 75 to 80 years, depending on where you live, and that you're going to literally go into 5D after that? The difference between going from 4D to 5D, okay, if it takes 1,000 years to go from 3D to 4D, on average. To go from 4D to 5D is actually more like 75 to 77,000 years. And then to go from 5D, and this is all from our perspective because you start getting outside of time, by the way, so it doesn't take as long as, but that's from our perspective here. So then to go from 5D to 6D, it could take 7 million of our years. Million with an M, a million. But that's from our perspective because time exists here that is separate from because it's stretched, a past, a present, and a future, 3 aspects of time, okay? From this perspective, that's how long it takes. Now, that shortens as you shorten your speed, as you become more dense spiritually, and then you're not vibrating as fast, you're not moving as fast, as close to the speed of light, which stretches time into this time dilation, by the way. Once you move outside of time, then everything happens now, and that it becomes drastically shorter, but it's still not like 5 seconds. It's still not that short of a time period. So we are in some senses going into 5D, but that's in the physical plane, not in the density. We're going into fifth dimensional thinking, but that doesn't mean that we're going to move past, just jump right over 4D and become 5D, and that it frustrates some of us in the world because so many people are trying to teach that as if we're just going to we can just leap and bound over everything and slingshot. And that's just not how it works. You can, in 3D, move into that thinking faster to make up time that you have lost being stuck here. But that doesn't mean that, well, if I've been stuck here for 75,000 years, I should be able to slingshot into 8D. No, you can only slingshot into 4D and close to 5D out of that whole ordeal, even though you've been stuck here that long, because it takes 75,000 years to go from 4D to 5D. So you can't slingshot past that. You can't slingshot it into the middle of it. The only thing you can do is shift into 4D and then get a hand up in the 4D realm, which is still going to take you, 7 to 10 of those lifetimes again. So instead of being 1,000 years, it's going to be 70,000 years or 77,000 years. I know that might be something that you guys might be confusing to you, and it doesn't make any sense with what I'm saying right now, and that's okay if it doesn't, because it's really hard to understand and hard to explain here because we have only the concept of time here. It's not until you start going into 4D that you start losing a little bit of you start gleaming the sense of so much deja vu and being outside of time, that you start to recognize that time then is only the distance it takes the physical body to go from one place to the other. And that your spirit, your immortal soul, doesn't take any time to go from one place to another. You're just there instantaneously, but you're also still back where you were there. And it like if I'm here and I astral project, I'm still here. And I'm there at the same time. That's part of the concept of 5D thinking that is getting you used to that. But it takes a long time for you to move into that, even down here. So in some senses, because of the reality of your thinking, you're moving into 5D concepts, but you're not actually graduating into 4D and 5D in a physical way or in a spiritual way. You're just starting to understand. You can grasp and understand the concept of the creation of the universe. It doesn't make you God instantly. I'm back with God now. I'm one with God because I understand what God is. Okay. You can actually start to imagine that and get closer to that, and it'll blow your freaking mind to do so. But that doesn't mean that you're there, right? Unless you go out of body and then you go there. And then when you do, they push you back. You're not supposed to be here yet. You're not ready. It's just like when people have those near-death experiences and they're like, I went through this tunnel and I went to this place and it was totally different and I didn't want to leave. And they were like, no, it's not your time. You have to go back. No, but I like it here and I don't want to go back. Sorry. And they push you back. Same thing when people do DMT, ayahuasca, psilocybin, and they have one of those experiences where they end up where they call being in the center of the universe with God and being one with God and learning all this knowledge, and then they push you back, and you don't have any control over that. You're like, but I don't want to leave. I want to be here. And they're like, sorry, that's not how it works. You can't be here, and then you're just back. And everyone says, well, the only reason they came back was because it was 10 minutes and the drug wore off. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so if you want to believe that, and that's all that happened, you can, because you have free will here. And you can believe that that's exactly what happened there. Okay. Yeah, it's not your time yet, Penny says, right? So you're right. Chandra says it's so hard to be when I feel like I forget daily. Well, you in this place, it's designed in this place. Fiona, welcome, by the way. Now to put my glasses on and see who's in the audience. This place is designed to. This is like Bizarro World. If you know anything about comic books, this matrix, this illusion, it's designed to hold you here. This is the first test. Overcoming this test is what child souls are supposed to overcome. It's akin to you getting out of your playpen, climbing out and falling on the floor and not crying so your parents don't come pick you up and put you back in the playpen, and then starting to scooch, and then your whole life begins, and then you're starting to crawl, and then they're trying to help you strengthen your legs so that you can then stand up, and then they try to get you to learn how to balance and walk, and then you have to learn how to walk fast, and then learn how to jog, and then learn how to run. And then eventually you can, learn to ride a bicycle and things like that, drive a car and move faster and even fly someday, not like Icarus, but you know what I mean? So this place is being emulated and playing out in the physical in that respect for you. So you are born, you come out of the womb and you're brand new and you don't even know your self-worth yet. And then you learn self-worth. But you learned self-worth in the last life that you were in before whatever you were, and then you were born as a human. But that you get veiled when you come in, so you're not aware of that. But then you still have this attachment to the other side that helps you become aware of that. But then you have to learn how to get the physical body to work, the mouth to say words that you already hear. And some of you have memories of that. I have memories of my mouth wouldn't speak English yet, but I understood everything everybody was saying to me. I just couldn't get this body to say those words to them until I got the body to learn how to make sounds, and then you have to figure out how to pronounce words and how to get your tongue to move and the mouth to move and the teeth to move, and figure that out to then by watching and listening to your parents and seeing their mouth. Once your eyes focus properly, the same thing happens on the spiritual, is my point. And you need to realize that all of that happens to everybody, no matter what in service they are, or self or others. And then the life path changes. They come through already deciding what they're going to be. This place doesn't make you that, although they're trying. They try to convince you to be in service to self. They try to convince you that you are in service to self by giving you only choices that are self-serving and expecting you to buy into those concepts: clicks, likes, power, money, fame, all of that. They reward you for going down that road. And if you make enough money, then they take control of you, pimp you out, have sex with you, do all these things to you in life that people don't want to even fathom because they're in service to others. So therefore that concept is very wrong and detestable and evil to them. So they would rather go, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. They're not having sex with all the film stars. They're not making them have sex with people, and they're not pedophiles. None of that's happening until people start talking about it. And then people go, that person's lying and that person's lying. And then someone gets arrested for it. Right? P. Diddy. Epstein. And then all of a sudden people go, well, I wonder what's on their list then. Now all of a sudden those same people that are like, they're not doing that, are all of a sudden going, I hope they put that list out, which the lists are probably never going to come out because there's nobody that's in charge. Even now, like everyone's like, well, no, Trump's in charge. All those lists will come out. I would love for the Epstein and the P. Diddy list to be published for the world. I don't think it's going to happen. There's far too much money owned by those people and too much power owned by those people that would be on that list, all the way down the pecking order, down to some singer or actor or actress or singer who's being currently raped and groomed to be somebody of power. Okay? That's why those lists probably won't come out. When you consider that Angel Studios put out that movie that Jim Caviezel is in, where it was a true story about an ex-Secret Service agent in the United States of America who quit his job to go and help child trafficking, sex trafficking, and child trafficking and drug muling by the cartels in the United States deep state. and everyone around the world, and he went to try and save kids. They made a movie about that. You would think that if none of that was going on, like Hollywood claims isn't going on, the politicians claim isn't going on, if none of that's true and it's all a lie, why then, when there's a real story about a real person who got involved with that and saw some of that slavery and rape and murder going on and told the story about it, and somebody filmed that story, why then did the deep state of the U.S. government sue to keep them from releasing that movie worldwide to anybody, so nobody got to see it? And they only had a limited distribution in limited theaters of people who were in service to others who said, we're not going to abide by that. And the federal government went after those companies and tried to ruin them. And you can look all of this up because you probably don't even know what that movie was, and you probably didn't have it come to a theater near you. Yet Top Gun was in every single, at the same time or right after that, was in every theater across the world in the United States of America, because that one is pro American government, American military, and so therefore they're wanting everybody to join the military. But when the dark side of that same thing that is coming out, that has actually been proven in court, not misinformation, disinformation, or a conspiracy theory, proven in court. So the story that was being told was actually a story of real life that they documented, that was played out, and the court systems put people in jail over because they were proved to be accurate and true when they tried to film that man's life and his story. The very people that own the government and own the governments around the world tried to stifle that information from coming out. So why would they do that? If it was a lie, they would have just said that. They would have ignored it, and they wouldn't have allowed it to come out. And that's what they tried to say. But quickly, that company sued them and said, you have to cease and desist calling this a lie, because it's actual fact, and there's court cases that we can prove to the world that this is real. So the governments had to stop, and the deep state had to stop trying to say they're lying, and that never took place, because it in fact did, and it's listed in courts that everybody can see. So because of that, they had to stop. You don't know that. I do. So then they just sued to keep them from getting it put anywhere, and paid people off so that they couldn't put it on in the movie theaters. Why would they go to those lengths to do that if it was not true? You have to ask yourself that question. Okay, so the reason is, back on point, and then I'm going to start raw again. The reason is evil people, which you all out there do not understand. Evil people, people that are in service to self, unlock a certain knowledge that only they get, and all of them get it. The more evil you are, the more the same knowledge you get that every other evil person gets. I've studied this for like 40 years, not even kidding. I've never written about it because I probably wouldn't get it published, but I talk about it. And I didn't for a long time. I've just been observing them. Know thy enemy like you know thyself. Okay? Sherry, welcome. Or is that Sherry? It might be Sherry, right? So, right, and Sherry says Trump has zero care for the power. He does what he decides. No, see, that's why they don't want him to be the president. I absolutely agree with you. People say just because Trump is rich and he's a developer and things, well, he must be evil like the rest of them. Only 14% of the population is evil. 86% of the population is in service to others, not in service to self. Yes, is Trump's family related to all of these other families, these oligarchs that think they own the planet? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that the individual is evil and is self-serving. But they try to paint him as if he is an evil rapist, misogynist, everything that they are, they try to claim that he is. That's what evil people do. They immediately try to say that you are what they are, or people judge people by who they are. We don't see reality for the true reality. We see reality how we are from our perspective. So when people accuse someone of something, they accuse them of, and this is why the Bibles say that him who has without sin cast the first stone, or judge not lest ye be judged. Those lessons come out of if you can think it's because that's what you would do if you were them. Okay, so you are judging yourself more than you're judging them, and you don't realize you're doing that. So when people are saying Donald Trump is this, and this, the only way they can come up with those ideologies is they have to think that way. Otherwise, they wouldn't fathom to do that. When you get somebody else who's in service to others, completely, say, a religious person that goes to church or whatever, and then you ask them questions, they're either going to repeat talking points to you that they've seen on television, which is the programming that they were programmed to say. And if you see somebody who, I don't watch television, I'm not on social media, and you say, what's your opinion of Donald Trump? That's when they'll say, I don't know because I don't follow that. Well, people are saying that he's evil and blah, 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 blah. You're going to see that person has far more critical thinking, and they're saying, well, the only way that they can know that is if they have to know the person. Those are people that they don't want talking to the world. Those are people that they don't want you to become. They want you to immediately spew talking points. Do you see? You take a side immediately from whatever programming you got, whether you watch Fox or CNN or MSNBC or ABC or CBS or whatever you watch, or if you're on TikTok, whatever you watch, they want you to repeat what people say to you, and you parrot it. He's a criminal. He's a rapist. He's a felon. They want you to repeat those things. They tell it to you over and over and over and over and over and over. If you only watch those channels or that channel, one of those, you're going to get the evil that he is. Okay. And you can look this up. They've proved that. Okay. During the election cycle here in the United States, during the 1 year time period, Donald Trump had 95% negative press from one side of the legacy media and 86% positive press from the other side. Flip that over to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. They had 87 and 88% positive press by the same legacy media. And if you were watching Fox, they had 90% negative press from that media. So those two media outlets, so just say CNN and Fox, are one's right wing, one's left wing. Okay. And all of the stories they tell you are pointed and slanted for their party to look better. And it's that bad. But if you don't, or you're not aware of that dynamic, you believe all these networks and they're all saying, well, if everybody's saying the same thing, it's got to be true. Who told you that? Where did you learn that concept? You don't know it, but you learned that concept from somebody who is part of that legacy media trying to tell you that. You didn't learn it. Well, I learned that from my dad. How did your dad learn it? You need to look into that. My dad's been saying that ever since I was born. It has nothing to do with legacy media. So where's your dad right now? He's sitting in front of the TV watching the news. Okay? That's what he's been doing since he was a boy. He's been programmed to spew the same thing. Or you go to school, and schools don't teach you to critical think. Schools don't teach you to have an imagination. Schools don't teach you to be an entrepreneur. They teach you to obey authority. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Okay? That's what they teach you. They're indoctrinating you from the second they get a hold of you. For 8 hours a day, they indoctrinate you all the way through college. And then you become their puppet and you're their mouthpiece, unless you can resist them. And when you come home and you turn on the legacy media, they're still indoctrinating you. So that's done for when you get out of school and you go to work, you have to still have the indoctrination. So when you're at work, you're away from it and separate from it. When you get home, you turn on the television, and what do? You now spend 8 hours, the next 8 hours of your life, being indoctrinated again by the same people indoctrinating you, the same way that your school was indoctrinating you. Okay. And unless you're aware of that, you don't combat that and you don't realize it. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. I got that from Frank Herbert, who wrote the Dune saga, the Dune books. Okay. He's gone now. He's passed on, but now they're finally making his movies for a second or third time. And this one, they're doing very well, very close to the book. So the point here is you have to realize that whatever service you have decided for yourself, whether you're in service to self or in service to others, you will unlock a bank of knowledge, a way of thinking that imprints on you, that comes from the universe, that's designed for you, that is on that path. And when you pick a path and you start going down that, you can't play the middle. You can't fool. You can only fake out humans. Can't fake the universe out. You can't go, I'm gonna pretend I'm in service to others so I get some really cool knowledge and I'm gonna take over the world. The universe will not give you that knowledge. It's only humans that you can trick and Jedi mind trick. Okay, and only the ones that are children in the mind, that are maturity level is under 18 years of age. And that doesn't mean physical body, okay? Because 90% of the entire planet is born, lives, and dies, and is never over 18 years of age mentally. You can look that up. That's not something I just made up. Okay. Sound of Freedom. Thank you, Sherry. Sound of Freedom. I couldn't remember the name of that. Put on my glasses and look up and I could see that. Sound of Freedom. That was the movie that Jim Caviezel was in that they tried to ban from the whole world being able to watch it, right? It's a must watch. I didn't see it. I paid money. Cassie and I both did that. Cassie paid for, I think, 3 tickets, and I paid for 2 or 3 tickets. I don't remember how many I paid for, how many she paid for, but I know that we paid for 3 to 5 or 5 or 6 tickets between the two of us for people who didn't have the money who could then go for free. But I never went and saw the movie. I don't know that Cassie did either. I'd have to ask her. She's in the audience, right? All right, Jamie, welcome. Welcome. So, yeah, so Sound of Freedom. If you haven't seen it, I would say see it. I've went to the website and I know, and I've seen documentaries about it and saw interviews with the guy and with Jim Caviezel and with the guys from Angel Studios. I've never watched the actual movie, but I know because I've studied that. I wrote a paper on all of that, the cartels and that stuff when I was in college. So we're talking about 35 years ago now, maybe more than that. No, I was in my 20s. So we're looking at 40 years ago. No, because it wouldn't have been 40 years because I'm only 57. So unless I went there, well, I guess I was there when I was 19, 20. So almost 40 years ago, 37 years ago, when I was in college, I wrote a paper and did a study on that because I was reading Bob Woodward and I was really, because I was into government. I had a government class, as a matter of fact, when I was in college. And that was what I wrote that for my midterm. In fact, it was called Who Watches the Watchers? And now there's a documentary. If you watch that documentary from the History Channel, I wrote that. I didn't get any credit for it. Either my teacher or somebody in that class got a hold of that paper that I wrote for my midterm in that class. And they sold it to the History Channel. And the History Channel made a documentary out of it. Didn't even change the script. It was what I wrote. That investigation that they say is mine. I had all of that and turned that in as a midterm, and I don't have the paper anymore, and I had it up until 7 years ago because people wouldn't believe me. And I go, look, here's the date. You can see when I turned it in and when it was graded. You can read this and watch the documentary from the History Channel and read this, and it's a script. And this History Channel, look when it came out. That documentary came out in like 1997 or 98. This is written in 1994, okay? So either my teacher or somebody in that class got a hold of that paper that I wrote and ended up giving it to the History Channel somehow, and they made a documentary out of it. I'm okay with that because it's changed the course of the way people see the world, because I entitled it Who Watches the Watchers, because I had insider information about the drug cartels and the Secret Service. And at that time, it was just starting to come out because it was right after Vietnam when I was a little boy. Vietnam started before I was born and ended when I was like 4 or something like that. Right, I was born in 67 and it ended in 74, so I would have been 6 when Vietnam ended. But realizing that the deep state of the United States of America was behind all of the drugs from probably forever coming into the United States, but definitely in the 50s, 60s, 70s until now. So we have all this fentanyl that's killing people across the United States. The deep state of the federal government of the United States, the military-industrial complex, is making about half, if not the lion's share, 60% of all of that money. And the cartels down there in Mexico bringing the humans across the border to be sex slaves and slaves to make things and manufacture things inside the United States and being sold as slaves to civilians in the United States. They're also making 60% of that money from. There's been like 4 or 5 movies made about that. However, the one that was not pulling any punches whatsoever, which was the Jim Caviezel movie, they didn't want that one being told. Okay, so they unlock knowledge that you cannot unlock if you're in service to others. You can't unlock the service to self knowledge. If you're in service to self, you cannot and do not get the other knowledge. So people who are in service to others, they do not understand or get the motivation of the way those people think. Their brain is wired differently, and they do not even understand that. And they ask questions like that. My second wife, who was molested when she was younger, she said, I wonder why he did that. And I said, because he could. You need to understand there's no like crazy plot to what he did. You were a little girl and you have a little thing that he wanted to get inside of. And he wanted to, and he was getting off on the fact that nobody knew he was doing it. And he chose you because you were a little girl and he wanted to do that, period. You have those same people are deviant that way, and they do that with boys and girls, and it doesn't matter. And they get away with it as long as they can. And sometimes they never get caught. Other times they do. Okay. And the motivation for that is there is no motivation other than it's exciting to them and they're getting off on it. I was going to be a profiler for the FBI. I mentioned it earlier. The one thing that is constant with all profilers, or with all people that are profiled, all serial killers, rapists, and murderers, is that they're getting off on it in a sexual way. Or they're doing it because they believe that because they had a religious upbringing and they were beaten and dominated usually by their mother about craziness. One guy was a serial killer because his mother was psychotic and she would beat him and torture him and stick him in a closet for 4 or 5 days and just give him bread and water to eat. If when he was done showering, if he didn't rinse the soap off, the soap bar. If he did not rinse the soap bar off so that there was no soap or sticky residue on the soap bar, she would go absolutely insane. And she would lock him in a closet and she would beat him and torture him and give him food and literally bread and water for 4 or 5 days. Then she would let him out. And every time that happened, where he forgot to rinse off and make sure there was no soap in the soap dish, clean that out, that would happen. So he grew up and he decided that God, that was his calling from God to make sure that people didn't do that. And so he would go over and knock on somebody, random person's door, usually women, who he knew were alone because he cased the joint. And he would say, my car broke down. Can I come in and use your phone to call to get it? Oh, yeah, sure. And they would walk in and he'd go, before I do that, can I use your restroom? Because I really got to go to the bathroom. And they would go, sure. And he'd walk in the restroom and he would check the soap dish. And if the person didn't rinse off the soap and the soap residue was there, he would rape them and murder them. Okay. Most people would never fathom that would be something that kid would do, that man would do. What is the motivation behind why he raped and murdered these people? It wasn't until after they caught him that the profiler started to realize what happened, and they unraveled his past and found out that his mother was insane and caused her son to end up also, because he probably carried the same gene, to be predisposed. But because she was in service to self, the son was in service to self, and they unlocked the same thinking, and he ended up becoming a serial killer, and he killed people who didn't rinse off their soap in their soap dish. So if there was any soap residue in the soap dish, or the soap would stick to the soap dish when he went to pull it out, he'd come out and kill the person. Okay. So you have to realize that there's not something that is this prolific thing that is involved with the motivation behind what people do. It's actually usually pretty rudimentary, sometimes a little complex because people are crazy and do crazy shit. But when you start profiling people and you start realizing and paying attention to characteristics on how people, the archetypes of how people act and what motivates them to act that way, you can't help but go down the road, if you're a clinical objective scientist in any field like this with psychology, to go down to the road where there's a definite line that is drawn between good and evil and the way those people think and are motivated and what motivates them. And so if you want to exclude anything that has to do with spirituality, evil people think evil. Good people don't think evil. Okay, so good people will never understand how evil people think unless they try to get into the heads of evil people, right? If you saw any of the Silence of the Lambs, Red Dragon, Manhunter, any of those movies, they were all based on the guy at Quantico, the teacher at Quantico, who was teaching this theory, and he was teaching it to the world, okay? Because he actually got that clinically, what was going on, and an entire 2 generations now of hunters of humans have had this kind of training that other people have onesie-twosie knew about. Sherlock Holmes, and a few other people in real history who knew these things and started figuring that science of that out, that there was a motivational factor that had to do with the brain and how it was wired because of whether a person was good or evil, and just how evil they were would dictate how far they go down that path. So you have to realize that is, and Raw's talking about that here and explaining that. I know that I've gone like an entire hour when only played like a question or two, but this is actually something that's super important, right? That people, Rick, welcome, by the way. I didn't notice that Rick popped in. Denise, hi. I didn't notice that Denise popped in either. I didn't have my glasses on. Look at the chat, see what you were talking about, okay? So you have to realize that they unlock a knowledge that you will not unlock. And if you're not one of those people like me who are willing to study that ickiness, most people don't want to even feel what it feels like, because it doesn't feel good to even look at that stuff, right? So I tell people, if you're not the person who came here to do that, don't. Just trust that some of us are aware of that, and we don't tell the whole world about it all the time. Because when you inform somebody that you're on to them, they try to change who they are about themselves. But at a certain level, they can't. And that's the beauty of that. But I'm not going to get too far into that science because then somebody will try to not. But usually when you're uncovering that part of it, getting back onto the movie, when you're getting to that part of it and unraveling a little bit of the thought process or what motivates them, they don't want that stuff known. That's why that movie was banned, and they tried to ban it, because it wasn't just saying there were evil bad guys that we caught. It was actually, and if you saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It was actually sort of giving you an idea as to the motivational factor and the mindset of what goes on in these people's heads. And if you start going down that road, they didn't go down that road as far as they probably could, but just that little bit was enough to get them to try and change the narrative and ban that narrative. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and continue here now that I've talked for an hour and I've only done like 2 questions.
This enables fourth density negatives, as well as positives, the chance to form social memory complexes. It enables negatively oriented entities the opportunity for a different set of parameters with which to show their power over others and to be of service to the self. The conditions are the same as far as the vibrations are concerned. 66.31 Questioner: I was concerned about the amount of physical distortions, disease, and that sort of thing in third density negative just before harvest and in fourth density negative just after harvest or in transition. What are the conditions of the physical problems, disease, etc., at late third density negative? Ra, I am Ra. Each planetary experience is unique. The problems, shall we say, of bellicose actions are more likely to be of pressing concern to late third density negative entities than the Earth's reactions to negativity of the planetary mind, for it is often by such warlike attitudes on a global scale that the necessary negative polarization is achieved. As fourth density occurs, there is a new planet and new physical vehicle system gradually expressing itself, and the parameters of bellicose actions become those of thought rather than manifested weapons. 66.32 Questioner: well then, is physical disease and illness as we know it on this planet rather widespread on a third density negative planet just before harvest into fourth density negative? Ra, I am Ra. Physical complex distortions of which you speak are likely to be less found as fourth density negative begins to be a probable choice of harvest due to the extreme interest in the self which characterizes the harvestable third density negative entity. Much more care is taken of the physical body, as well as much more discipline being offered to the self mentally. This is an orientation of great self-interest and self-discipline. There are still instances of the types of disease which are associated with the mind complex distortions of negative emotions such as anger. However, in an harvestable entity, these emotional distortions are much more likely to be used as catalyst in an expressive and destructive sense as regards the object of anger. 66.33 Questioner: I am trying to understand the way that disease and bodily distortions are generated with respect to polarities, both positive and negative. It seems that they are generated in some way to create the split or polarization, that they have a function in creating the original polarization that occurs in third density. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is not precisely correct. Distortions of the bodily or mental complex are those distortions found in beings which have need of experiences which aid in polarization. These polarizations may be those of entities which have already chosen the path or polarization to be followed. It is more likely for positively oriented individuals to be experiencing distortions within the physical complex due to the lack of consuming interest in the self and the emphasis on service to others. Moreover, in an unpolarized entity, catalyst of the physical distortion nature will be generated at random. The hopeful result is, as you say, the original choice of polarity. Oftentimes this choice is not made, but the catalyst continues to be generated. In the negatively oriented individual, the physical body is likely to be more carefully tended and the mind disciplined against physical distortions. 66.34 Questioner: this planet, to me, seems to be what I would call a cesspool of distortions. This includes all diseases and malfunctions of the physical body in general. It would seem to me that, on the average, this planet would be very, very high on the list if we just took the overall amount of these problems. Is my feeling correct in this assumption?
Okay, before he answers that, right? Yeah, so Sherry, yeah, she said, let me see if I can get this up on the screen here, right? Right, I draw damaged people to me, right? What that happens when you start to ascend on being in service to others. People are drawn to you. They don't know why, and they just tell you their whole life story, right? She says, I find that I don't even have to ask, and people just tell me their life story, right? I heal them, and then they fade from my life. I've had people tell me about killing people in wars around a fire, and his pain haunted him. That was a tough one. I never forgot him or never forget him. So yeah, that happens. I remember one of my sisters, the youngest one, the one that's just above me in age. She used to say, why do you talk to everybody? You're like our father. You just talk to everybody. And why do people just start telling you their whole life stories? And just we're standing in line somewhere, and I look at somebody and I go, hi, how you doing? And they start talking to me. And the next thing you know, they're telling me their whole life story. She's like, why do people just tell you their whole life story? And I said, when you're in service to others and you start moving up, they don't know why, but they just know that they feel comfortable enough to just open up and instinctively realize that you're there to help them and that you will help them. And then if you are truly in service to others, you don't expect that they stay in your life. You assist them where they need you, and then you allow them to move on with their lives, just like Sherry was saying. So you help people in some way, and then they just move on with their lives, and you've assisted them now. You've guided them in some way to actually help them heal or deal with the pain of something, and then they just move on, and someone else shows up in your life to do the same thing. That's normal. And then you find, and I tell people this as I'm working with them, you're going to find that that'll be happening to you at some point. If you pay attention, you'll find that as you ascend, you'll start doing the same thing, paying it forward, because people will then come to you and just start giving you that knowledge. So my sister, getting back to her, when I first told her that, she was like, yeah, I don't know. That's just embarrassing. You just talk to everybody about everything. And that was like 4 years ago that I had that conversation with her. She was just here on Wednesday. She was just here. We did Thanksgiving on Wednesday because she was doing Thanksgiving with her kids on Thursday. So I did Thanksgiving with her and my mom on Wednesday, and then did Thanksgiving again with my mom on Thursday. And we'll have Thanksgiving dinner again today because we have tons of leftovers. Probably Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow too, and maybe Sunday, until we get eat it all, which is okay because my mom's loving every second of it because it's out of the norm, and we get pie, pumpkin pie for dessert. Mom likes that, so I do too. I love pumpkin pie. I look forward to that this time of year. So she's telling me, she says, I had to bring this up. I was doing these things, and I had a doctor's appointment. And on this, she's telling me about something she did on the day before. I was at the doctor's appointment yesterday. She says, and I come out of the doctor's appointment, and there's this woman that's there, and I see her there, and I say, hi, how you doing? And she says, oh, I guess I'm okay. And she says, and I don't know how I knew this, but I just knew that she wasn't okay and that something was wrong. And so I said to her, girl, you don't look like you're all right. Are you okay? And she was like, oh my God, is it that obvious? Can you see that? And she's like, yeah, I can't tell you how I know. I just can tell you that I do know that. And the girl just opened up and gave her whole life story and told her what was going on. And she says, and the next thing I know, I hear words coming out of my mouth that are words that you say, talking about me, words that our father said. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, he's right. I've become him, and I've become our father. And here I am just talking to some random person. And I'm now taking the time to help them spiritually heal themselves because of what's going on with them. And by the time I got done, this woman was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I ran into you here. And she said, I looked at her and said, God put me here today and you here today so that we could have this conversation. And then she walked away and she went, oh my God, I got to tell my brother about this because he's freaking right. That's what happens. I'm like, you have changed in the last 5 years. And she's like, obviously. I said, you would have never said anything to that woman 5 years ago, you would have looked at her and walked right past her. And I nope, not doing it. And you would have walked off. And she's like, you're right. And I'm like, you have changed. You are becoming more in service to others, and you're waking up and you're piercing the veil and you're gaining a knowledge, and they see it. And when you were honest and said, you don't look like you're okay, they didn't take that. She didn't take that in any way that was other than, oh my God, is it that obvious? And then she just opened up and went, bah, here's what's going on in my life. And then you were able to then help her. You had it within you to understand what she was saying, and then help her and guide her. And she's like, oh my God. And she started laughing. She was like, 5 years ago, I would have said you were crazy because I thought you were crazy then. And I'm like, right. But now you're becoming that person that other people are going to say is crazy. And that's what happens. That's the knowledge that you unlock. Okay. Let me see what you guys are talking about here, because it looks like you're making comments, and I want to make sure I don't miss anybody in case you're asking questions, right? Yeah, Chandra said, yeah, I lose relationships fast, like we heal each other and move on. Well, that's what happens. Some people that you only have in your life for a minute or two or a month or two, or sometimes literally just 5 or 10 minutes or a half an hour. And that's all that they needed from you was that. And then there's something that you learned from that exchange as well. So that's the learn, teach, learn that Ra talks about. So then you may not ever see that person ever again in their life, but you were in their life and made a difference. And they'll remember that conversation probably far longer than you will, because it meant more to that person. Then they'll say, yeah, and here I was, and they'll tell the story to somebody. And this one person just came up to me and said, blah, blah, blah. Mel Gibson tells that story. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, because I wasn't there, but he tells the story of when he and Jim Caviezel were making the Passion of the Christ, and they were in a foreign country filming, and they went to a cafe. And so no one even knew they were there because they were keeping it under wraps. And the two of them, Jim Caviezel and Mel Gibson, were sitting down at a cafe having some coffee and eating some food. And Mel tells the story of this old woman just walked up to them and said to them, can I shake your hand? So he said she must have recognized either me or Jim. And she said, it's a wonderful thing what you're doing. And God knows what you're doing is paying attention. So continue doing what you're doing. And she shook their hand and said, God bless you for what you're doing. He's like, that lady there's no way that woman knew what we were filming and what we were doing out there in the desert, because we were hiding it from the world. We didn't want anybody to know about it, so we wouldn't have paparazzi taking pictures. So, but she knew to say these things to us. He says, and that's the weird stuff that went on, that it seems like, and he's pointing at the sky, it seems like somebody was actually paying attention to us filming that movie. Now, that could have been a stunt that he just made up. I don't know, because I wasn't there. So that might have been something that he just said to promote the movie in a religious way, in a Christian way, or it could have actually happened. They both claim it happened. So it was either a really good marketing gimmick and they just made the story up and passed it off, or it actually did happen. I like to think that it actually did happen. So how did that woman know to say those things then? Did she happen to be, you can make up any story where she happened to be, driving in South. What's going on over there? Binocular that she happened to have with her, and oh wow, look, that's Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel. They must be filming a movie. Oh look, Jim Caviezel looks like Jesus. And okay, so then she went and found them in the market square later and thanked them. So I mean, you could really get complicated with your idea of how that woman knew what to say to them there, if it was in fact real. You see my point? So who knows? But sometimes things like that, you make some little remark to somebody and be nice to them because that's in your nature. And you have no idea what the ramifications and the positive can be for those people. And I've told stories about that a lot in life, about how helping somebody, and literally the two priests, the one that baptized me when I got baptized, he told a story of walking down the street, coming out of a restaurant when they were in San Francisco, and they went to a restaurant. They were coming out and they had their styrofoam with the leftovers. And there was a guy on the street, a homeless guy on the street, and asked them for some money. And they said, well, I don't have any money. And everybody was just kind of ignoring him and walking. And they were all clergy. They were all priests and vicars in the Catholic Church. And one of them saw that and stopped and gave his meal, the leftovers, to the person who thanked him for it. And then because they didn't have any cash on them. And so they gave him his food. And then when they were leaving, one of the priests said, "You just gave that man your food?" And he said, "What if that's Jesus? What if that was a test? What if he asked that because he was motivated by God to ask that, to see whether we were hypocrisy or whether or not we would stop and help that person?" And you have to ask yourself that question. He used that as a teaching moment for them when they asked. Do you see? What if that was a test and we would have all failed if one of us didn't stop and help that man in some way? I offered to let him have some food, and because I didn't have any money, and he was okay with that because he was hungry, so he took it. Now he's eating. So what if the motivation for him to ask us that wasn't just every person that walks out the door? And if it was, and it's on him if that's the case, but not on me now, not on us now, because I assisted him. I did my job as a clergy who's supposed to help people. I offered him what I had, and now we'll move on. But every one of you who didn't offer him that should ask yourself that same question, to use that as a teaching tool for the rest of the clergy to think about. So you gotta pay attention to that kind of stuff, right? But that doesn't mean you always have to give something to somebody, because again, most of the time their motivation is they're panhandling, and they sit out there and they make hundreds of dollars an hour by saying that they have something wrong. Broke down, I need gas money, or hey, I'm homeless, can I get some food? And the truth is, I watched one guy. I was coming out of the parking lot of Walmart last week, and he was standing out with a sign wanting money, and the person in front of me at the stoplight gave him money. He went over and he got the money. He didn't put the money in his pocket. He was holding onto it in his hand. The person drove around the corner, and he turned around and walked over to his car and put the money away in the car and went back over with a sign. So instead of just putting it in his pocket where it would be, where he would end up with a bulge of money in his pocket if he had too much there, and people would say, "What's all that in your pocket?" He was going to his car, which was parked next to him. So he had a car. This guy was homeless, need help, had a car, and was going over and putting the money in the car and then coming back and trying to pick up more money. So he wasn't just trying to get whatever that person gave him. I don't know if the person gave him $1, $20. That was his post where he was going to sit for however many hours he wanted to sit there. So he was not just trying to get enough money to get gas or get enough money to get food, because he was going for more. He took that cash, put it away, and was now coming back to get more. So that's his job, right? My brother ran into a guy down in LA one time at a gas station. The guy was standing there and asked my brother for money. He said, "Dude, I'm like 1 minute away from being where you're at anyway." So he walked into them, got his gas, and came back. And so he saw the guy still over there, and the guy motioned for my brother to come over. And he said, "You know what?" And my brother says to him, he says, "You're wearing a suit." He says, "So it's not like you don't have money. And are people giving you money?" And my brother was like that. He's in seminary right now for a theological college to get his theological license and his minister license. But he said to the guy, and the guy said to him, "All right, you caught me." He says, "I make more than $100 an hour standing here doing nothing but panhandling for money." And my brother was like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah. Why do I need a job? I show up here and I have a suit on, and I tell people I broke down. I need gas money. I need to make a phone call. And I'm kind of hungry. Can you spare anything?" And 9 times out of 10, people don't give me any money, but one person here, one person there. He says, "I make more than $100 an hour. Watch." And this woman was walking up, and he says, "Hey, listen." He gives her the same spiel. And she says, "Hold on a second." She walks back, comes back with 3/4 of a pizza and says, "Here, take this, and I'll get you some cash when I go in there to get my gas." And she goes in and comes back and gives him $20. He got a 3/4 of a pizza and $20. And she got in her car, after she pumped gas and drove away. He looked at my brother. He says, "You want some pizza?" My brother said, "Why not?" My brother stood there and ate pizza for free, had lunch with that guy for free. And that guy made money and got lunch for him and my brother and had leftovers. And my brother was like, "Good luck." And he was like, people just do that. And then you hear about people getting caught doing that. Those are people that are self-serving, that realize they can make a lot of money doing that. You don't know the difference between the two, whether they're down on their luck or they're not. So you can't assume that they're evil, but you can't assume they're not either, because they're counting on that from you. Okay. Sorry, I had to scroll my screen down. All right, so let me continue here so at least we can get through this session before if I would shut up long enough, right? But you have to realize the motivational factor in evil people is different than yours, and the knowledge that they have is different than yours. It's different than so they don't even think like you whatsoever. And they've proved, and then we'll get back on point, or getting back on point, and then we'll get going on the law of one. But they've proved that people who are self-serving, that become narcissists, that changes something in their brain chemistry, and their brain physically changes compared to people that are in service to others. So they're wired differently, and that's why I said this last week, and I'll say it again. That's why you hear in Yoda saying that to Luke when he said, "Is the dark side stronger?" And he said, "No, it's not stronger at all, but it's easier, more seductive. But if you start down that path, forever it'll dominate your destiny, because it actually changes your brain chemistry, changes your physical brain in a way that locks you into going down that path, and it makes it really hard for you to change your ways and come back from that. It takes somebody very strong to stop being in service to others and start becoming in service to self. And some people who have been serial rapists and murderers have actually wanted to get caught and said, I can't stop myself from doing this. It's an addiction that I have to do. You have to stop me or I'll do it again. So some of them have become self-aware that what they're doing is something that has changed their brain, that they can't stop themselves from doing it, and they don't want to continue doing it, and they've repented, but they are physically incapable of actually stopping themselves from committing that crime again and again and again. They're like, I need to be locked up. I need to go to jail for the rest of my life, or I'm going to continue doing this forever. Not all of them, but there's like a 1 or 2% that become that self-aware, and they're like, please stop me. For the love of God, stop me. All right, let's continue.
Ra, I am Ra. We will review previous material. Catalyst is offered to the entity. If it is not used by the mind complex, it will then filter through to the body complex and manifest as some form of physical distortion. The more efficient the use of catalyst, the less physical distortion to be found. There are, in the case of those you call wanderers, not only a congenital difficulty in dealing with the third density vibratory patterns, but also a recollection, however dim, that these distortions are not necessary or usual in the home vibration. We overgeneralize as always, for there are many cases of pre-incarnative decisions which result in physical or mental limitations and distortions, but we feel that you are addressing the question of widespread distortions towards misery of one form or another. Indeed, on some third density planetary spheres, catalyst has been used more efficiently. In the case of your planetary sphere, there is much inefficient use of catalyst and, therefore, much physical distortion. We have enough energy available for one query at this time. 66.35 Questioner. Then I will ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact. Ra, I am Ra. Continue as always in love. All is well. You are conscientious. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Okay, let me get rid of that one and get the next session up here, and we'll start that. Let me open this up and get this primed here and share that to the screen. Let me go back over here and present this and share this on the screen here. Okay, put myself back up in full screen. Okay, so Sherry said in Australia, I gave money and always do. However, one time I remember, let me put it up on the screen and I'll read it for those of you who are on the MP3 file. One time I remember I have hundreds. One time I remember I gave hundreds so she was in bad shape. The people past us while I spoke with her said, oh no, you just gave her next fix. Well, it is up to the person that you help what they do. I don't think ahead. I just wanted to help and was attached because of it. So yeah, I mean, you can't guarantee that what you do when you give them money is going to be spent on not drugs or not alcohol. Right? You can't guarantee that. They have choices. So the only thing you can do is in good intentions, with good intentions, give what you can. That's why I would usually say to them, I don't have any cash, but I'll get you some food. Because that's when you're going to find out what their motivational factor is, right? If they get really disappointed or angry with you and go, yeah, oh, well, whatever. Yeah, that's fine. Then you know that that's not what their motivation was, but they'll take the food because it's free at this point. Some will get mad at you and go, no, fuck you, and, start cussing you out. That's, they weren't in any way, they're not hungry. Because if they were hungry, they would take the food. right? I remember when I was a kid, my mom would serve something that we didn't like. My mom would say, "You're not hungry enough, then, are you? Because I'm not a restaurant. This is what I'm serving you. And if you don't want it, don't eat it. This is what you have as a choice to eat for dinner. So it's either this or nothing. If you want something else and you don't like what I cook, you go get a job so you have money so you can buy your own food. And then I won't complain to you. If you don't like my food, take care of yourself." That was a good motivational factor. That if you didn't like mom's food, you had to get yourself a job so that you wouldn't have to eat mom's food. And you go, "No, that's okay. I'm going to go get something on my own." Okay. So so I always felt that, that if somebody says, "Hey, can you spare, $20?" And I don't give money, but if you want, I'll go and buy you a burger over here at the burger joint. And if they're hungry enough, they'll say, "Yeah, please. Okay. I'll take that." You know what I mean? Only a fool would turn down food. So if they turn down the food, walk away from them because that's not what they wanted that money for. Do you see? So that's one thing that I usually teach people, so that if somebody says, "Hey, can you help me? I don't have any money, but I have this leftover food from the restaurant. I'll let you have it." Because you were going to take it home, whether you eat it or not is up to you. You know what I mean? So half the time people don't reheat the food they have. They put it in the refrigerator and forget about it and throw it away in a few days anyway. So if you didn't eat it now, you don't really need it, do you? So if somebody says something, you go, "Here, I got this for you." And if they're hungry, they're going to thank you for it. If their motivation was they needed drug money or alcohol money, you're going to see it in their eyes when you offer them to either buy them food or offer them food. So you'll notice the difference, right? But yeah, you have to realize that you can't change who they're going to be. They have to make decisions. Right. So that's why you can't help somebody unless they want to be helped. You can't get somebody to quit drinking alcohol until they're wanting to quit. You can't get them to stop doing drugs until they're wanting to stop. Having interventions like people do, if somebody is willing to listen to the people who are having the intervention, then they'll stay off of drugs. But if you force somebody to go into some rehab, they're going to go through rehab because you're forcing them to. And then they're either going to escape from the rehab or they're just going to leave, or they'll go through rehab and then they're going to come out because they're doing it because they're trying to please you. And then the second they get back out, they're going to relapse and go right into doing drugs again. If they still hang out with the same people and you don't get them to change their lives, they're going to go right down that same road again. You have to realize that's part of the counseling that we would give those people, is they have to change their entire culture. They can't just, you can't stop doing drugs if you still hang out with people who do drugs. You can't stop drinking if you still hang out with alcoholics who drink all the time. Because misery loves company, and they're going to want you to come on, man, what's your problem? Just do it. And then they're going to, talk crap about you. The peer pressure is going to push them into trying to force you to do the drugs too, because they know that they have a problem and they need to have everybody have the same problem, because otherwise they have to take a hard look at themselves and say, "I'm the one that has the problem." People don't want to do that. That's why they're trying to escape when they're doing drugs or alcohol or both. They're trying to escape from facing the realities about themselves. And that's why they do that. Or you become addicted to it. It becomes a habit. That's what happened to me. My whole family were alcoholics. So I was predisposed to alcoholism, and everybody in my family, almost 90% of my entire family, were alcoholics. Therefore, you're going to grow up being an alcoholic because everybody's drinking all the time. So it's there, and you think it's cool because the cool uncle or the cool dad or whatever, is drinking. And so you want to go and see what it tastes like. And alcohol is addictive. All drugs are addictive. So you're going to do the alcohol, and the next thing you know, you're going to want to do it more because you like the way you feel when you're on the alcohol. And then the next thing you know, you're drinking all the time whenever you can, and it becomes an addiction, and then you just do it out of habit. And then you end up going through your whole life drinking alcohol. Same thing happens with drugs. Same thing happens with cigarettes. I used to smoke. Why? My father smoked and my mother smoked. Everybody that I knew when I was a kid smoked cigarettes. Then when I went to school, the cool kids were smoking. I didn't smoke because I wanted to be one of the cool kids. I smoked because by that time I was addicted to the cigarettes. And so I was smoking. I didn't, light up a cigarette thinking everybody's going to think I'm the coolest guy. And in school, I lit a cigarette because I wanted the nicotine, because I was addicted to the drug. And then people looked at me and went, "You smoke? Yeah. What? Yeah." I didn't say that because I thought I was cool. I was cool because I didn't think I was cool. I was cool because I just did the stuff, and it wasn't really cool, but I thought I was, because I was like, I'm just me. But they all thought I was cool. So the problem was, some people would smoke who wouldn't normally smoke because they saw me doing it. Well, I like him. I think he's cool, so maybe I'll try it. That's how peer pressure attacks us all. Okay. All right. So let's start with the next session. I'll do a sound check on this session. You guys tell me if you can hear it okay, and then we'll go from here.
August 15th, 1981. 67.0 Ra, I am Ra and I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. I communicate now. 67.1 Questioner, could you first give us the instrument's condition, please? Ra, I am Ra. The vital energies are more closely aligned with the amount of distortion normal to this entity than previous asking showed. The physical complex energy levels are somewhat less strong than at the previous asking. The psychic attack component is exceptionally strong at this particular nexus. 67.2 Questioner, can you describe what you call the psychic attack component and tell me why it is strong at this particular time? Ra, I am Ra. We shall elect not to retrace previously given information but rather elect to note that the psychic attack upon this instrument is at a constant level as long as it continues in this particular service. Variations towards the distortion of intensity of attack occur due to the opportunities presented by the...
Fiona, welcome. Thank you, by the way. Sorry, I was trying to find something for my mother to watch because she was watching. I had her watching the Santa Claus, and the Santa Claus 2 was coming on, but she gets bored if you have back-to-back sequels. So I decided to turn something else on, and because it's Black Friday, the normal programming that's normally on television this time of day is not on. So I was trying to find something for her to watch, right? So let's see. Sherry said, I started drinking when I was married. As my husband drank, never drank before him. I ended up drinking a whole bottle of wine, bearing pain of him cheating after he was separated. I never drank again. Well, good for you that you stopped drinking. I was drinking a lot. As I got older, I drank more and more. So when I quit 2 years and 10 months ago now, no, this is the 10th month, right? This is the 11th month, almost the 12th month. So that's 2 years and 9 months. I quit drinking, but I was drinking a fifth of vodka or gin every single day, plus a couple of ales that were like 7% alcohol every single day. So I would go through a half gallon of vodka in 3 days or a half gallon of gin in 3 days. A lot of alcohol. That's a ton of alcohol. But I quit completely and I haven't had a drop since, and I don't even think about it. When I got home, I poured out 2.5 gallons of alcohol because I ended up going to the hospital and almost lost my foot. So while I was there, I said, I'm an alcoholic. I need something to stop that, or I'm going to go through DTs. So they gave me these patches that they put on my body that they said would help me. And after having those patches on for 3 days, you get past the DTs. So then it was just a psychological craving. So I used that and said, okay, now I don't have the DTs and I'm over that. So when I get out of here, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to quit because I won't have the sickness that I had while I was in the hospital that I went through, and that kept me from having the runs, what they call the whiskey shits, and it kept me from having the shakes and so all they had left was the psychological effect of if I just don't buy alcohol and get rid of it, and I'm determined, I won't give in to that. I'm stronger than that. I quit smoking. I quit doing drugs. I quit all the stuff that what I did when I was younger. I had quit smoking back in 2013. And I smoked from the time I was like 9 or 10 when I started stealing cigarettes until 8 years ago. No, it's more than that now because it was 2013, so 11 years ago. So however long that is, from the time I was 8 until 11 years ago. So I would have been 46 when I stopped smoking. So literally, what is that? Right? Almost 40 years I smoked, and I quit. And I didn't do that cold turkey, but I did it. You can't get the thing in the United States that I used to quit because it's too successful. So they don't let you do that. I had to go to Mexico to get them, and it was just one of those little filters that you would put on the back of a cigarette. Only instead of having a hole where you put the cigarette in, it was actually inside. It would open up. And I would get this little cylinder that was round and had aluminum foil on the top and the bottom. And inside that little cylinder was a cotton ball that had nicotine on it. And you would put that inside that thing and you'd press it together and turn it. And when you did, it would break open the aluminum foil. And when you inhaled through the air hole in the front into your mouth, you got nicotine. So if you inhaled it into your lungs or into your mouth, it went into your lungs and into your mouth and you got a nicotine fix. So I used that, and I carried one in my pocket. Every time I needed it, I would just put it in my mouth and inhale. And once, eventually all the nicotine would be out of it. And if the nicotine was out of it, then I would carry the extra ones with me in a little packet that I carried. Because if I did that and I still had a nicotine attack, I'd be like, okay, there's no nicotine in here, and throw that one away and put a new one in. And I did that, and it took me about a month to wean myself off of that. Then I carried it in my pocket for a long time just in case. And then eventually I just stopped carrying it because I was like, okay, I haven't done it, and I quit. So I was able to quit cold turkey in that respect, but you can't buy that product in the United States. It was banned from the United States. I don't know why, probably because it works really fast. I tried the patch, didn't work. Tried the gum, didn't work. Went to that, and it worked first try. And we had to go to Mexico. And since I lived in Arizona, way out there in the Sedona Desert, it was only about an hour to the south to the border. So we would just go across Mexico and pull up to any gas station where they sold those, buy them, and drive home. Right. So, yeah. So drinking alcohol was the hardest thing I had to ever quit. By the way, when you're addicted to alcohol, it's harder to get off of alcohol. And cigarettes were the hardest thing I ever had to quit. Alcohol was easier than cigarettes, but it was all psychological. I used to not be able to walk down the alcohol aisle when I first year. I would avoid the alcohol aisle. Now I don't even think about it. One day I went into the store and I was walking along and I was going down to where I knew the cheese was. And I went down the alcohol aisle, and it wasn't until I got halfway down the alcohol aisle and stopped and was talking to somebody in that aisle as they were buying alcohol that I realized I was standing in the middle of the alcohol aisle and it didn't bother me in any way. And I giggled about it to myself internally and then walked off when I was done talking. And it never bothered me, but I was worried that was going to bother me when I first had quit drinking, walking down the aisle of alcohol, and whether or not I'd be able to stop myself from doing that, right? So good for you, Sherry, that you quit drinking after you got rid of that guy and didn't have to worry about it anymore. So good for you that you didn't get addicted to it to where it became an issue, to where it would be hard for you to quit. Welcome, Peter. Okay. Right. No, I hope I don't sound condescending, but I'm proud of you. No, you don't. And because I'm proud of me. Right. And I still count it. I literally just, I used to count the amount of days. Right. Because that's what they do. I never went to any AA meetings either, by the way. I didn't believe that I had to, and I didn't believe that I was weak enough to where I would relapse. I knew that when I poured it out, that was it, that I was done with it and I wasn't going to do it ever again. And I haven't. Every now and then do I miss it? Every now and then I go, yeah. And then I think about it for a second and go, yeah, no, hangovers, the way you feel the next day, you're still drunk when you wake up. You just don't think you are. And that feels icky. And that whole, nope, don't miss it. Don't miss it. Every now and then, you just, because you do something that you did when you were on drinking. Same thing with drugs or a cigarette. You have sex and you want a cigarette. You eat food, you want a cigarette. You get in the shower, get out of the shower, you want to have a cigarette. You get this routine that you do with the drug, and then you want to continue that cycle. You have to break that cycle, but that becomes a routine too. So once you break the cycle, then it becomes easier, and the cycle fades away when you have the new routine. It's that way with everything, spirituality, everything. You have to realize that. That's why the only reason I bring that up, right? Yeah, over here in America, you can buy alcohol everywhere. Sherry says, "Oh yeah, in America, you can buy alcohol in supermarkets, gas stations, liquor stores, everywhere sells alcohol. You can go into a convenience store that's not a gas station; they have alcohol, hard alcohol, hard liquor, wine." Beers, you name it. You go to a gas station, every gas station sells alcohol, right? You're not supposed to drink and drive in the United States of America, but when you get gas, you can buy alcohol. Okay. They sell alcohol every freaking place. The only, you can't buy it at a police station or a hospital, but almost everywhere else. Any other store that you go to that sells any kind of food sells alcohol. Okay. It's rare that you go into a store that sells food that doesn't sell alcohol in this country. Okay, so it's everywhere, right? Oh, you had a question? I'm sorry, Cassie, I didn't see that. I was trying to go up and I unfortunately didn't. So if you had a question, I apologize. Please ask me the question because I knew that I missed some of what people were saying, and I was thinking, shit, I need to read this, and I didn't quite see any questions. So I apologize that I missed you. Please ask me your question, and I'll try to answer that. It's the same here in the gas stations in Ireland. Alcohol everywhere, right? Well, it's because I think the Irish are the ones that motivated everybody to do that because we drink so much. But then Hispanics are the same. So you take the Irish and the Hispanics and the Italians, and that makes up the majority of the population of America. They're all alcoholics. They're all, you know what I mean? So then you bring in the Germans, alcohol. Most countries, most people drink a lot, right? So I don't know where your question is, Cassie. Let me go and see if I can find it. Yeah, you said you had a question. Let's see. I remember noticing a lot of it in others, but not all people when I started meeting people in a spiritual community. No, wait. Answer Cassie's question. All right, it's above this. Okay, where is it? So that's why a lot of wanderers or people like us have a lot of health issues. Yes. Is that what he is saying, Leo? Yes. Yes. That was what he was saying. I didn't know. I didn't see that. I'm sorry because of everybody else that was talking. I apologize, Cassie. So yes, that is why because we come from a higher vibratory pattern, we come down here. We don't fit right here. So our resonance doesn't fit properly here. All wanderers. One of the things that when I interview people and they say, do you think I'm a wanderer? I say, let me ask you a few questions. And that's usually the questions that we ask. The things like, do you feel like you don't belong? Do you feel like do you feel homesick and you don't feel that this place is your home? Not everybody associates with that in the lower vibrations of being veiled, but do you have autoimmune problems? Do you have sensitive skin, sensitive eyes, sensitive to light? Do you have sensitivities to food? Do you have food allergies? Do you have physical problems, intestinal problems that they can't find right away, and they're looking and doing all these tests on you? 99% of all people who answer those questions, yes, are wanderers. And the same with, have you always felt like you were kind of a loner and you didn't really fit in with everybody? They could eat anything and they never got sick, or they didn't get fat, or they could go out in the sun and sit there and they would turn brown and you burned and then peeled. Not because you had fair skin, but because, people that never get sick and you always got sick. Most of those traits are wanderer traits. And it's because your vibratory pattern of your immortal soul that is occupying this avatar doesn't fit in this place, because you've already been through here and you've come from a higher plane of existence, even though you've come into this body and were born in this body, or you're a walk-in. If you're a walk-in, it's even worse. But if you were born in this body and you came here as a wanderer, you're veiled, you don't know it, but those issues are still going to arise and you're gonna have problems. And when you get into this community and you start meeting other people that are aware that they came from a higher plane and they've come back down here to help, you will see that 100% of them have autoimmune issues. 100% of them have the same psychological disposition to being on this physical plane. And if they're not awake enough to pierce the veil, they don't understand why. But they have this longing to want to help people. I know that I'm supposed to be doing something else and I don't know what it is, and I'm frustrated because I can't figure that out. People who are just living here go, I know this can't be it. There's got to be something better. That's about as far as they get with that. People who are wanderers are like, I know I'm supposed to be specifically doing something and it's not this. And I don't know what it is, but I know that I need to help people. They're more motivated almost in a desperate way, that there's something that they know they're missing that is in the back of their mind somewhere that they should know, and that they don't know it. It's not just, there's got to be more to life than this. That's usually where it starts when people start waking up. But if it just kind of stays there and people go, okay, whatever, I'll just survive, they're not ready to start piercing the veil. Those people who are starting to pierce the veil will then start manifesting these other thought processes. And 100% of all people, almost exclusively, who have autoimmune issues are actual wanderers, and they're not aware of it. It's not always, because some of them could just have gene pools, but most of the time they are, and they may not be ready in this lifetime to pierce the veil yet. And so you look at them and you go, okay, they don't know they're a wanderer yet. Maybe the next lifetime they're supposed to wake up to that. And so you don't push them and say these things, because if you do, then they go, okay, you're crazy. And you go, all right. And then you back off. But you will find the more people that you are aware of and speak to who are awake, the more you have the same things in common. And that entire bank of autoimmune issues is going to be 100%. Just a matter of which ones you have compared to which ones they have. That are unique to your genome, to your own physical body, because your body doesn't understand. This avatar doesn't get why you don't mesh with it. And so because of your vibration coming from a higher level, you're out of phase with this body, and that causes this body to have distortions. And that's what we're always talking about, where they manifest as physical distortions for wanderers, because that's your energy that you've brought with you from a higher plane when you've come down here, and that's manifesting. And that also is supposed to assist wanderers, because once you are aware and you start piercing the veil, and that you are aware that you came here to have a purpose that wasn't just, well, I'm in service to others, and so while I'm here, I'm going to help. Wait, I came here specifically to do that. And you start to move and merge into your higher self with the fourth density body. And that's when you will then make the adjustment in your vibratory pattern and start curing those things and gain control of it without being on their medication. So that you'll hear the first thing that we talk to you guys about is you need to become your own advocate and figure out what it is holistically that you can do to help yourself. That's the first thing that we get you thinking about, because if you start finding what is it that and you're looking for these things, what is it that I can do that I can help myself to get off of this medication that these people are just prescribing? Because there is no doctors anymore that are saying, listen, we're going to have to put you on this medicine, but it's only going to be temporary, because what we're going to try and do is cure what you have. You never hear that conversation anymore in this country, in the United States, from any doctor. I don't know about wherever else you are on the planet, but specifically in the United States, the medical association here is not designed anymore to cure anything. Nothing has been cured in the United States since 1948 when they cured polio. Nothing else since then ever. They've only came up with a drug that will stave off whatever that disease is till you die from either that disease or something else. That'll let you live. But you have to pay that pharmaceutical company every fucking month to buy their medication to be on it for the rest of your life. And you usually they start you on a regimen of medication. By the time you're in your 60s, you're on 10 pills minimum. And that was what you will be on for the rest of your existence if you allow them to do so. If you start becoming self-aware that you are, in fact, a wanderer, and you start realizing what's going on, you then will realize that my reality is created by me. I can fix the things that are done to me. Okay. And then you start looking into holistic things to help yourself, changing your diet, the foods that you eat, making sure that you exercise right, and eating ascension foods instead of ultra processed, high sugar, high fat, high salt foods. You get away from that stuff, your body then will start fixing itself. And when you balance yourself and learn to do that and balance your chakras, your body will start naturally trying to balance itself. But it takes a lot of work, because everything in this place is designed to distract you away from it. And the doctors are just going to feed you another drug that's going to cause other inflammations in your body. So once you become aware of that and start becoming your own advocate, things will change for you, but it's not an easy road. It's still going to be work. But for instance, 15 years ago, I had asthma, COPD, type 2 diabetes. I was 150 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight, low testosterone. And they didn't think I was going to live very long, because I would end up with congenital heart disease and die because of everything. High blood pressure. I'm trying to think of what else. I had medication for all of that. Okay. In the last 10 years alone, I have gotten off of all medications except for testosterone. And my doctor has lowered my doses of testosterone, because my body is creating more testosterone now. Okay. So my doctor's tripping on that, because that normally doesn't happen. My lungs have regenerated. I no longer have asthma or COPD. And no one in the history of the planet has ever had their lungs regenerate from proven, not misdiagnosed, proven x-rays and otherwise, and being in the freaking little the glass bubble they put you in that box to test your lungs, that I had asthma and I had COPD, and I no longer have asthma or COPD on anything that they can test me on, including x-rays, EKGs, the whole nines. Okay. I'm currently no longer on blood pressure medicine. I'm currently no longer on type 2 diabetes medicine because I'm currently and have not tested positive for type 2 diabetes in 2 years and 10 months since I quit drinking alcohol, which meant that I wasn't eating crap food when I was drinking alcohol and getting drunk, which is all pure sugar, and turning into alcohol that your body inflames your body with and tries to absorb the alcohol and get it out like a poison, which was putting me over the edge and becoming type 2 diabetic. Changed my diet, stopped drinking alcohol. My blood pressure went down. I stopped taking the blood pressure medicine, and I've gotten off all of everything except for the testosterone, and including my cholesterol went down. And that's the one pill that when I stopped taking, I had four humans and a computer calling me and asking me why I stopped taking an atorvastatin, why I stopped taking the statin. I said, you guys must be making a lot of money from the pharmaceutical company for me to be on that drug, because I quit 8 drugs and you guys didn't care and said, good for you. And then when I stopped the statin, it was like the CIA crawled up my butt with a microscope and you guys were freaking out over it. So everything is possible. You just have to stay on point and be motivated to look into nature, because any pharmaceutical company that manufactured a drug that is doing something for you for something that it was prescribed for, no matter what your prescription is, that pharmaceutical company based that manufactured drug on something that they discovered in nature that did the same thing. But if everyone finds out about that, will stop taking their pharmaceutical drug and will take medication and go and find out that holistic drug that they can take that is in nature. So they paid off the Food and Drug Administrations around the world to say that anything natural is no definitive proof it does anything, and it won't cure anything. Only pharmaceutical drugs will cure things, but every one of them, 100% of them, is based on something that they discovered cured something in real life, and then they manufactured it and made it less potent so that you would have to continue to take that drug for the rest of your life to do the same thing. So you need to look into that, become your own advocate for everything, and then learn how to balance your chakras and heal yourself. All of these things are ascension things that you do. And as you do those and you become unveiled, your body will fix itself, because you realize as a soul, I'm out of phase with this place and my body doesn't understand it. So then you apply to the body, because you realize as you ascend, I am the creator. I am a piece of the creator. We are all 100%. Everything is the creator. Therefore, I am in control here. So I make this body. I'm not just using it. It wasn't created by an outside entity for me. I created it. I control it. I control the narrative here. So I can calm my body down and say, it's okay. You can accept this vibratory pattern because I am the one who created you. And you were made for me. And I am the one that's in charge. So it's okay that you don't need to remind me that you don't feel right, because I love you and I created you, and I say that you feel okay. Trust me, and the body will then trust you. And guess what? It fixes itself. When you remove all outside things that cause inflammation, sugar, specifically sugar, salt, and a few other junk foods that are created with a ton of sugar and salt in it and flavor enhancers, you get all that processed stuff out of your body. Your body sees even aging as a disease that it needs to fix. So when you take your immune system away from trying to cure the poison you're putting into your body, it no longer has to fight that poison. So then it starts actually looking at your internal body and says, oh, here's a problem we need to fix. Now it has the resources and the time and energy to fight that specific thing, because it's not fighting all the poison off you keep putting in your body with all the processed foods and the sugars and the salts. Okay. You get that out of your body, and your body will relax and then focus on what it can. And then it'll go after the problems that you have that are autoimmune and fix them. Okay. Takes a little bit of time, but it works, right? Ray Cassie said, I healed my other stuff. Let me put this up on the screen, but I'll read it for those people around the world who are listening on the MP3. I healed my other stuff, and now this new stuff came up that came up after I was like, yay, I'm getting, I'm doing great. Woo, right? Yeah. Whoops, tripped. Yeah, and then maybe not quite yet, but I'm working on that. Well, you can't change things that you can catch, right? So if you catch something, a virus or something like that, that can throw your balance out of whack, and then your body can then turn to that and start attacking that. And if you're not taking care of yourself 100%, the other things that you had going on can start raising their ugly head again, because your body, your chakras are out of whack, and your physical body doesn't understand what's going on, and those distortions start to manifest again. That happens. We have to constantly tune ourselves. And that learning process of doing that is part of your ascension as well, of being constantly aware of what's happening to you, even when you're sick, enough to then take time for self-care. And we teach this to people as well, to not let your chakras get out of whack by the influence of this place, because then those other things will start to manifest again, and you have flare-ups. That happens when you get distracted. As soon as you start your ascension, this place fights back, and opposition fights back against you and tries to cause those dissensions within your psyche or your body to pull you away from the manifestation of yourself moving into the higher self. Try to get you locked back in the matrix by giving you pains and making these autoimmune problems flare up, so that you then not focus on yourself in the spiritual, and you focus on yourself in the physical. So that's opposition that you keep coming up against until you get control of your own ego, and until you can block out the opposition. And we can work on that and help you with that. In fact, Peter, I'm supposed to be working with you for a few things. We talked about that, and I haven't had time because I was going into the holiday here to contact you, because I told you about 3 weeks ago that I would work with you. I'm still planning on that, brother. I haven't forgotten you. It's just that crazy stuff going on here. But you have to learn and become your own advocate, so that you can then look at yourself psychologically, physically, mentally, physically, spiritually, and balance all of that to help balance your body, so that you can take care of your body. But it all comes down to all this crap food that they're feeding us is low vibration on purpose, to cause all of that inflammation, to cause you to become sick, so that you get on their drugs. This is literally, people are starting to realize it around the world. Okay. All right. I'm going to hit play. I got to jump up and go in the other room and start turning on lights, because it's getting dark in there and there's no light on there for my mother watching television. I have to close the curtains, turn on the light and the lamp for her in that room, get the light up in the room over there. So I will be back. So if anybody pops in and goes, where the hell's the host? He's up and there's nobody going on, and we hear Raw talking. I'll be back in a minute or two. Okay.
The entity in any weakness. At this particular nexus, the entity has been dealing with the distortion which you call pain for some time, as you call this measurement, and this has a cumulatively weakening effect upon physical energy levels. This creates a particularly favorable target of opportunity, and the entity of which we have previously spoken has taken this opportunity to attempt to be of service in its own way. It is fortunate for the ongoing vitality of this contact that the instrument is a strong-willed entity with little tendency towards the distortion, called among your peoples hysteria, since the dizzying effects of this attack have been constant and at times disruptive for several of your diurnal periods. However, this particular entity is adapting well to the situation without undue distortions towards fear. Thus the psychic attack is not successful, but does have some draining influence upon the instrument. 67.3 Questioner, I will ask if I am correct in this analysis. We would consider that the entity making this so-called attack is offering its service with respect to its distortion in our polarized condition now, so that we may more fully appreciate its polarity, and we are appreciative and thank this entity for its attempt to serve our one creator in bringing to us knowledge in, shall I say, a more complete sense. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. There is no correctness or incorrectness to your statement. It is an expression of a positively polarized and balanced view of negatively polarized actions, which has the effect of debilitating the strength of the negatively polarized actions. 67.4 Questioner, we would welcome the services of the entity who uses, and I will use the misnomer, You might say, of attack, since I do not consider this an attack but an offering of service, and we welcome this offering of service, but we would be able, I believe, to make more full use of the service if it were not physically disabling the instrument in a minor way. For with a greater physical ability she would be able to more appreciate the service. We would greatly appreciate it if the service was carried on in some manner which we could welcome in even greater love than at present. This, I assume, would be some service that would not include the dizzying effect. I am trying to understand the mechanism of this service by the entity that seems to be constantly with us, and I am trying to understand the origin of this entity and the mechanism of greeting us. I will make a statement that is probably not only incorrect.
Right. No, Cassie said it just goes to show that we're always growing and we have so much to learn always. No, that's the truth. You can never let your guard down. You have to, because the second you do, you're going to get opposition. Sorry, the cat was up sleeping on the back of my mom's lazy boy, and she climbed down onto the end table and was looking over at me. She just saw me because she just woke up, and she's now coming in here. And she's in the dining room right here, and she's looking at her food, trying to decide whether she's hungry or thirsty. She's just waking up, but she was looking at me like, hi. And so I was waving at her and talking to her and trying to get her to come over to her so I could pet her. But she's right now trying to figure out whether she's hungry, and she's probably waiting because she probably wants me to give her. I have like a fresh pet in the refrigerator, but I also give her dry food. And around dinner time, she always wants, if we're eating, she's social because we're all social animals. So if I'm making food for mom and myself, I have to give her some of the fresh pet because she feels like I'm leaving her out if I don't. So I give her a handful of the fresh pet, and she's so dainty. She pulls out one piece and then eats it outside of the dish, and then reaches in and sometimes pulls out two pieces and drops one and then eats one and then picks up one. She doesn't sit there and gobble it over her dish. Isn't that funny? She's so dainty. She's going to make a beautiful little girl kitty, or be a girl human when she comes in, right? Unless she comes in as a boy. But she's so dainty. She's cute. Where if I did that with a dog, dogs are dogs. They're dropping it all over the place, right? It's so different between animals. But even the boy cat, before we had to put him down because he had cancer, poor guy, he wasn't as dainty. Girl kitties are so much daintier than boy kitties. Women are so much daintier than men. So, yeah, we literally have to stay diligent with ourselves and realize, we can splurge on the stuff that's good for you. As you get older, you end up not eating the stuff that you love anyway, just because you realize the stuff that you loved was bad for you, was unhealthy, or was doing damage to you. Like I have diverticulitis or diverticulosis. It's only diverticulitis when you have a flare-up. But I have, so in my intestines, I used to eat popcorn and nuts, love every kind of nut there is on the market. I used to eat those by the pound. I love that stuff. Well, over the years of my life of eating so much popcorn and nuts, that the going through your intestines, they get trapped in the corners of an intestinal tube, and they get in that corner, and because they're sharp, because nuts, when you break them down, if they don't turn into like peanut butter or nut butter, they have little sharp edges, and as they're going through your intestinal tubes, they get stuck in those corners, and they make scratches in there, and those scratches either turn into pits or valleys. And then when they get in there, they'll irritate that, and that gets inflamed. And once that happens, then your body wants to eject everything that's in the intestines. So you get, diarrhea. And even when everything is out of your intestines, the body keeps doing it until the inflammation goes away. So you have to either get on antibiotics and anti-inflammatories or both at the same time to lower the inflammation, and then your body goes back to normal. So because of that, I can no longer eat those things, and I love and miss dearly popcorn and nuts. Miss them dearly because I grew up eating them my entire life, loved them. So just as you get older, just because of the damage you do to yourself when you're young with the foods and processed foods, you get older, and at some point you have to stop eating some of that stuff or doing those things because of health reasons, because you don't listen when you're younger. So the sooner you cut those things out of your life, the better you're going to be, because then in moderation, you can still do the damaging things to yourself and get away with it without causing cancer or, some other disease that will kill you. But you can't tell anybody when they're young, because this entire place is designed, and then the evil people that are in charge here design this matrix and control this matrix to have you not live very long. They don't like people living longer. They want you to die young. If everybody didn't make it past 35, they'd be happy. They would still live longer because they don't eat all the foods we eat. They don't eat the processed foods that we eat. Everyone thinks, well, why does rich people live forever? Because they're rich. They don't buy processed foods from McDonald's and things like that very often. They have chefs who cook whole foods for them. They cook organic foods for them. Perfect example, when Barack Obama became the president of the United States, his wife tore out the entire rose garden of the White House and planted organic food. Okay? And the chefs from the White House picked the food from out there to make them food, except for meats, obviously. And then they had, I'm sure, organic chickens and organic fish and organic pig and organic whatever. Okay? Because that's how Michelle Obama is. So the reason that they're healthy is because she eats healthy and doesn't buy pizza and organic food, doesn't go to Walmart and buy processed food or whatever store, wherever you are. Rich people don't eat the foods you eat. They sell you that food and you make them rich, and they eat organic, homemade meals. And that's why they live to be 100 and you live to be 60, if you're lucky. Okay? Unless you're a woman, then you get to live to be 80 or 85. And if you're lucky, anything above that. Those people who live long and prosper, Spock. Those people who live long, when you see them on the news and they're, old Mabel so-and-so is 102 today. You ask Mabel, what have you done? When they ask them, what's your secret? They're like, I smoked and drank. But it's still, when you ask the question, so how did you live? They'll tell you they didn't eat the processed foods. I never ate processed foods. I cooked every day of my life, and I bought as much healthy or grew my own vegetables in my own backyard. That's why they are trying to get you to not do that. That's why they're trying to pass ordinance so that you can't grow your own vegetables and have your own chickens. They don't want you doing any of that because that's healthy and you'll live longer. They're trying to get you to go to the stores and buy processed foods in America. 30 countries in Europe have banned all American food companies from selling the food they sell to Americans over there. The same food companies sell healthy food to the people in the UK and in Europe. They sell the same brands over there, and the ingredients over there have 5 words in it. Okay? Bag of Lay's potato chips in the UK says potato, right? Potato, salt, oil. Here in America, it's hydrogenated this and monosodium this and FD&C yellow number 5 and blue lake 7 and high fructose corn syrup and sodium benzate and all these monosodium glutamate and the ingredients are a book. Over there, it's 3 ingredients. Same chip. Because those people pass laws saying we don't want shit food in our country. America, you guys are accepting of that, and you go into the stores and you buy that, and you're just used to it because it's all been there. And you go and buy bread, and you're like, I don't understand why this bread's healthy, isn't it? If it doesn't say 100% whole wheat, it is not good for you. Second, where it says whole enriched wheat flour. Enriched means sugar and salt, 100%. Fillers, processed foods. You need to understand that about the way they think, okay? Sherry said, right from the ocean or grass-fed cows that rich only raise for themselves. No, right, absolutely, Sherry. That's the truth of that, right? And Jamie said, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Probably hopefully something that I was saying. Yes, you have to realize that rich people don't eat the foods we eat. So if you look at, even in our television programs where they'll show you that, where you go into a rich restaurant and it costs a lot of money for the food, but look at the food. They have chefs cooking. You go to one of our restaurants, there's not a chef back there. There's a fry cook who's usually somebody that just got out of prison who cooks food. There's not a chef back there cooking food, right? They're processed foods and they're fry cooks. You go to a rich person's restaurant, there's a chef that paid like $1 million for their license, and they cook organic food for rich people. That's why rich people live longer. They're not eating the stuff we're eating. They're not drinking the stuff we're drinking. They're not drinking soda. They're not drinking all of that high fructose corn syrup. Okay? They're eating organics. That's why they live to be 100. That's why you never hear of them dying of cancer, hardly ever. They die of old age. Rich people die of old age because they don't cook themselves, but they don't go out and get it at a fast food restaurant. They don't eat in the same places we do. You never see rich people or movie stars going into a Starbucks. You never see them at a Denny's. You never see that. Why? Because they don't want to eat that food. They don't want to be bothered by us slaves either, but they don't want to eat that food. You always see them in places where there's a chef cooking good food. That's where you run into them. I was in Vegas and I ran into Clint Eastwood. What was he doing? He was eating food at this restaurant. Okay, what do they serve at that restaurant? Well, it's not a high-end restaurant, but the food's really good because there's a chef there cooking organic food. You didn't run into Clint Eastwood in a drive-through for McDonald's, did you? You didn't find him at a Jack in the Box or a Taco Bell, did you? You didn't find him at a Denny's, did you? You didn't find him in one of those restaurants. I walked into Little Caesars to pick up pizza, and Donald Trump was sitting. You might find Donald Trump in a McDonald's. He has this thing for McDonald's, and he eats that every now and then, okay? But you're not going to find him regularly sitting down at a McDonald's or a Taco Bell. Rich people don't do that. They eat organic food that people serve for them, cook up for them. Think about that. They don't have 1/3, let alone 1/8 of the inflammation due to processed foods going through their body like we do. That's why they're not on drugs. That's why they don't have any of the issues that we have. That's why you don't hear about that. That's why rich people that are in Hollywood, when they die, they don't say, oh, so-and-so died of cancer. That's rare. Oh, so, well, how did that person die? They were 100. They were 87. They were 90. They died peacefully in their bed. Or they died from a drug overdose because they do drugs, right? Because they are taking uppers and downers like crazy. Those are the ones that die because they're on the pharmaceutical drugs, the same ones that you guys are on out there in the world. Same ones we're on. But they don't eat the same foods we eat. Why? First thing they do when they have money is stop eating the foods that we eat. Someone tell them that? Maybe. Okay? Because it makes you fat. And if you're fat and you're in Hollywood, you're not going to get a job for very long. They're going to make you lose weight. They want you to lose weight. Why? Because you sell more tickets to movies if you're young and good looking. Okay? So how do they keep you from that? Stop eating the crap food that you eat when they all eat that food. Stop doing that. You can't eat that anymore. From now on, you eat organic food that's being cooked by somebody. So yeah, you got to pay $500 or $1,000 a plate. But when you have $50 million in the bank, $1,000 a plate is cheaper than going to Taco Bell for us poor people. We eat the crap food. We die young. They eat organic food made by a chef. They live to be 100 years old. Think about this, guys. Think about that. Right, Jamie? Oh, so you were talking about, yeah, no, Jamie, that's true. I can send you some videos. Jamie was answering when I was asking what she was talking about. She said, no, that 30 other countries have banned our food. And yes, I told you about my family who don't take meds but are in the healthcare. Yeah, her and I talked about that. She has family members who are in the healthcare industry that won't take the medicine from pharmaceutical companies. And I said to her, same thing. I'm like, think about that. That's freaky, man. She was like, I know, right? Think about that. When your own family members are in the medical industry and they're like, I don't want those drugs. When your own family's in the industry and they won't take it. Think about that. So yeah, no, you can, I'll send you some of the videos they're all over TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And I watch them and I send them usually to people. I'll start sending them to you. I'll find some tonight. So I apologize if I end up sending them to you too late because I'm usually up until 1 or 2 my time. So if you're not in my time zone, it's an hour or 2 or 3 ahead of me. And if you're in Australia, it's morning for you anyway. So if I forward something to you, you're getting up anyway. Because it's late, it's morning for me. Like if I send something to Peter, it's 2 a.m. for me. Peter is in the UK. So he's 8 hours ahead of me. So if it's 2 a.m. for me, it's 10 a.m. for him. He's up. Right? He's up. So the only time I bug Peter is like now. He's getting ready to go to bed. Well, Peter's a night owl. Most people in Europe are. But yes, literally, I can send you some videos. Even Canada, they were showing a cereal here in the United States, and they had this was people in our government that had a box of cereal made by one of the major brands, Post, Kellogg, one of those companies, and had the same box of cereal by that same company that is sold to the Canadians. Okay. And they had both of those boxes sitting in front of people, and they were filming this because it's on C-SPAN, and somebody put it on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. I think I found it on Instagram, and they said, "Here's the ingredients to this cereal," and it was one of those cereals like Fruit of the Loom, right, or whatever that's called, the one with the bird, and it's the Fruit Loops. Here's the ingredients to Fruit Loops in the United States. And they were reading Blue Lake, yellow number 5, red dye number 2, and then they were reading high fructose corn syrup and all of this and all of these colorings for the colors of the cereal itself, and how those are. They were talking about how those are all toxic and cause ADHD and ADD and inflammation in children, and all these attention disorders in children here in the United States. And here's the exact same company that made the exact same cereal for Canadians, and there was none of those colors, and they were all natural. Beet for the red and purple, pumpkin or one of the other orange squashes, to pureed to make the coloring for the orange, and it had natural sugars and no preservatives and nothing else. And they pulled out the bag to show you the difference in what the colors looked like, and the ones with all the toxic colors, red dyes and lakes, was very vibrant colors, and the other one that was pulled out was very dim. And they said, when they contacted the manufacturer, they said, well, American kids won't eat that cereal because this cereal tastes better and is more vibrant in color. Weird, because all other kids around the world eat this cereal because they don't know the difference. And so what they're saying is that American kids won't eat it. Well, if you have them sitting next to each other, American kids are going to pick the sweetest one and the most colorful one. If you take those off the market and you only give them the other one, they're going to be like, well, these aren't as good, as vibrant as the other one, but they taste just as good. They'll get used to it after a minute, and they'll forget that the other one looked the way it did, and they're going to feel better and be more healthy, and they got used to less sugar in their diet. So therefore, the things will taste sweeter to them than all of the fillers and crap that is in the other one that's enhancers. So that argument is a lie, because if they're making the healthy product version for everyone who is banned it in their country, and it's selling just fine in that country, at some point, that country had to have their kids eat the cereal that no longer was as good looking or as sweet tasting, and apparently it worked because they still buy it. And it wasn't like those kids went, we're never going to buy that ever again, and they stopped buying it because of it, and they lost money. Because if they did that, they wouldn't be selling it to the other countries at all, but they are. Okay, which means what they're selling Americans is, we don't want to make it this good for you because your lazy ass will just buy this if we tell you to. Well, the kids won't eat it, and so you're going to be screwed, mom and dad. Okay? Kids will eat what you teach them. My buddy Paul did that with his son because he and his wife were split up, or his girlfriend, baby mama, were split up, and she would give him fast food. So my buddy Paul was very organic and fresh food, but the kid always wanted to go to McDonald's, so he took him to McDonald's, and he started getting him a salad plus the other junk. Okay. And he said, you can only eat your French fries after you eat your salad. And he started getting the kid eating the salad, and he would talk to him and joke and laugh and have a good time while they were eating. And he ate one too. So it wasn't like, do as I say, not as I do, son. He was eating healthy food, and his son would eat the salad, and then he would give him some of the French fries. And he saw that as a reward. Well, mom always gives me this. But then after not much time of him doing that with his father, he would say, what do you want? And he'd say, I want a salad. And he started ordering wanting, when he was with dad, he liked the food that he ate with his dad. But when he was with mom just bought him the other food and he just ate it because mom bought it. But when he had the choice, he started eating healthier because he liked the way it tasted. Because you realize when you taste the flavors of a salad with salad dressing, then you taste French fries, that's just a potato with salt on it. There's not much flavor there, but if that's what you eat, the processed food, and you take it and dip it in the French fries, like I stopped eating French fries because being type 2 diabetic, they tell you can't eat hot potato because it turns into a starch, turns into a quick sugar. So if you eat cold potatoes, the chemistry changes of the potato and it gets into your body slower. So as a diabetic, you can eat cold potato, but you can't eat hot. So you can't eat French fries because they're hot. So I stopped eating the French fries, and some people just love French fries. And then I pick up French fries because I'll buy like a hamburger from my mom, and I'll grab some of her fries and put it in my mouth. And I go, my God, this is nasty. This is like oil with salt around a potato. I can't believe that I craved and liked this stuff when I was younger. Oh, I gotta have some French fries because they're crap, but you don't know it when you're used to it. You think they're really good. It's the salt that you're addicted to that you don't realize is what you think is the good taste, because the salt is a flavor enhancer. So then they started making them fries that have less salt on them. Less people started eating the fries. People would add salt to it because the salt is the flavor enhancer, like a monosodium glutamate. It tricks your body into thinking that something tastes good. Well, that's also something that causes inflammation in your body. Sugar and salt causes your body to swell up with water to try and pass the sugar and salt out of your body. So it causes inflammation. Alcohol does the same thing. So if you're eating or drinking alcohol and eating processed foods, your body's going to bloat up, and you're going to have nothing but water weight and inflammation in your joints, which is going to cause more pain, which is going to cause more inflammation, because it's a downward spiral. Cut out sugar, cut out salt, cut out alcohol, cut out processed foods, just those 4 items out of your diet, you will lose weight. So they always say that with diet and exercise, this drug you'll lose weight. With diet and exercise, you're going to lose weight without that drug. They say that about Ozempic. You take Ozempic, and with diet and exercise, you'll lose 30 pounds in the first month. Well, of course you will. Change your diet and have exercise and get your body chemistry up. If you do calisthenics for 5 minutes a day, raising your heart rate, your body chemistry burns more fat for the rest of the day. You don't have to do exercises for an hour. All you have to do is get on a treadmill and either walk for 15 minutes or jog for 5 minutes or do jumping jacks and get your heart rate up for 5 minutes sustained. That's it. You don't have to have it racing to the roof either. And your body will burn more fat and process your food for the rest of the day better. So with diet and exercise, you're going to lose weight no matter what you do. Okay? And so every time I see that on a commercial and they're like, this drug with diet and exercise will help you lose weight, it's the diet and exercise that's helping you lose weight, but they're getting you addicted to the drug, thinking that it's the drug that's making you lose weight, and it's the diet and the exercise that's doing it. So if you do the diet and the exercise and leave that drug off, you're going to find that. And I love people that get on that health kick, because once you go down that road, I have a cousin and she took pictures of herself. She's a little bitty thing too. She's like 5'1", 5'2", weighs like right now, I think she weighs like 95 pounds, if that. She's tiny, but she's all muscle now. And she took pictures of herself. She was sickly. She didn't like it. Her health was, and she was only in her late 20s and maybe early 30s. She looks very young. I think she's older than she looks. And so if she's listening to me, she's going to get mad at me for talking about it. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe that you told the story, because she didn't give me permission. But so I won't give her name. And I have a really big family, so she'll know who she is if she's listening. So she took pictures of herself, and then she started doing like Peloton, bicycling. And then she changed her eating habits. And the next thing she knew, she realized that she had more energy because of the foods that she was eating, and the energy, which we call ascension food, was better for her because it gave her more energy. And she got away from all the food. She just posted about 2 days ago a picture of the snack aisle. And she said, what I see when I look down this aisle is poison. She posted that. And I responded with a like, and then went, that's because it is. And she posted back to me, absolutely mic drop, right? I used to call that when I was younger. When I used to tell my mom, I would come over to my mom's house and I was working out. And at the time I weighed like 270, which is what I weigh now, but I was all muscle because when in my younger days, I was going to be a football player at some point until I got an injury. And then I realized that I couldn't be a football player, but I was still weightlifting and bodybuilding, and I got really big muscles. But to do that, you have to eat certain foods and a lot of proteins and a lot of good things to keep your energy level, to maintain your body weight in your body. And I would come over, and my mom would have a bag of potato chips that she would be eating. You want some chips? And I would say, no, that's empty calories. It's empty calories. There's nothing in that bag of potato chips that is healthy for you at all. The potato is there for the crunch. And it is so saturated with fat and salt from the oil that they're using and the salt that it's just now an empty calorie. It's just inflammation waiting to get into your body. It's an addiction. It's not in any way, there is no sustenance there that is going to help you. And then when I said that so much about everything that she had, unless she was cooking something, I would say, no, I can't eat that. It's empty calories. I said that so much, my mom she started looking into it, and she was like, oh my God, you're right. It's all just bad. And I'm like, yeah, processed food is bad for you. And if you stop it and start eating, I have no energy and I have no time in the day to do anything, I'm going to go pick up a burger. That's a downward spiral. That's a downward spiral because you don't have any energy, because the food that you're putting in your body is draining you of energy, because it's low vibrational energy that's designed to make you sickly, fat, overweight, inflamed, and ready to get onto manufactured pharmaceutical drugs, which propagate that exact same thing. Okay. Once you get away from that processed foods and you start eating healthier, you will find that you crave more. And I love watching people, getting back to my cousin and anybody else that's done this, when they go down that road and they start working out and exercising and they feel so much better, and the body kicks out those good endorphins when you do those things, that it rewards your brain, it rewards your body, because then your body efficiently grabs all of the nutrients that it needs out of food better. And once that happens, you have more energy, you feel better about yourself, you have more confidence, your body loses the inflammation, it starts making muscle tissue and muscle mass, and you start feeling better, your bones get denser, and it processes good now. Everything starts firing the right ways. You feel better, you crave those things now. Your brain says, these foods are what's giving me the good endorphins. I want these foods. And so then you start down that path. So it doesn't take long. If you can get past the 30-day mark, 60-day mark, at the worst, 60-day mark, as long as you're not going and eating the processed foods while you're trying to work out. If you're eating all the junk food and fast foods while you're trying to work out, you're counteracting everything you do when you work out, and you're just barely floating above water. It's like treading water in the middle of an ocean. You're never going to go anywhere. You're always going to just be right there. And you're going to go, I can't figure out, I'm exercising every day and I can't figure out why I'm not losing any weight. It's because you're still eating and doing the same bad habits that you were doing before with your food intake. Change your food intake. You're going to feel better. You're going to have better energy anyways. We call that ascension foods. Then you're going to realize that this is good. I like this. And then you'll have more time in your life because you'll have more energy to do things. So it propagates itself in a positive way. You'll have more energy, so you'll be more motivated. Because you're more motivated and you have more energy, you'll lose more weight because you're more active. Then your body kicks in the positive endorphins that make you feel better again. You have more confidence. You like the way you look. You have better looking clothes, smaller clothes, cheaper clothes, because fat people's clothes cost more money. Cheaper clothes, other people look at you in a different way, makes you feel even better. Psychologically, your whole life changes simply by changing the food that you eat. They don't want you to know that. They don't teach it. When I was a kid and I was starting to get overweight as a child, the doctor was teaching me nutrition. They don't do that now until you're on your deathbed, and then they bring in nutritionists in the hospital to work with you. Okay? They don't do that. They used to do that when you're 10 pounds overweight, 5 pounds overweight. You need to change something about your diet, and the doctors used to just talk like that. They don't talk like that anymore. It's rare to find a doctor that does. Okay? So if you don't become your own advocate, and you don't learn these things on your own, or you don't have somebody like me who tells you about it, you'll never know it, and you'll just keep eating the same foods, and you'll bloat up with all these inflammations caused by everything that you're doing to yourself, and you'll get fat. A buddy of mine lives here in the United States, and he left and he was over in Egypt and around the world over there. And he said, I've been in Africa for a month. I'm eating pizza every day and I'm still dropping weight. It's coming off of me. What's going on? Somebody over here said, non-GMO food, bro. You're eating healthy wheat that is 100% wheat turned into flour, that is not hydrogenated with all kinds of crap. You're not eating hydrogenated or high fructose corn syrup or a flour that is mostly sugar and salt. You're eating organic everything because that country's poor and they don't have the money for it. Another buddy of mine lives in the Philippines, and he was born and bred in the United States and was a trucker driving long-haul trucks across the United States, retired and moved to the Philippines and owns a bed and breakfast over there. And he's skinny as a rail. He's 6'1" and he weighs like 130. And I'm like, how are you so skinny? And he says, everybody's skinny over here. This country's too poor to buy the pesticides and the crap that America puts in their food. So everybody goes to the store and they buy, everything's organic. So you don't go to the store and shop for a whole month at a time because everything spoils in a few days. So you go to the store every 3 days and you pick up what you're going to make with that in the next day or two, and then eat the leftovers in the next 3 or 4 days. And then you have to go back to the store again because there's no preservatives and crap in the food here. Everything's organic. You buy a banana. If you don't eat that banana in a day or two, it's brown and you have to make bread out of it. In America, you can buy a banana and leave it on your counter for a week before you even want to even get near it to touch it. And it'll be just fine because of all the steroids and preservatives that they pump into that plant that you eat that banana of. And the same thing with the coatings that they put on the outside of all the fruit that we eat in this country that they don't do in those other countries. So you only buy what you're going to eat in the next few days, and you make stews and you make stuff, and that when you can freeze and put in your refrigerator and keep longer. But you don't buy all the food that we buy and leave it sit around for a month because it will go bad. Over there, it doesn't go bad because you don't buy all that much and you eat it, and it's cheaper because it's not crap food, and everybody's skinny. Everyone's thin. It's rare that you find somebody that's fat in one of these poor countries. Why? Because they're not eating processed foods. Everybody who comes from another country and comes to the United States, if they're in the United States for more than 2 years, usually on the 3rd-year mark, they've gained 30 or 40 pounds. So about a 5-year mark, everybody who comes out of Africa who's a skinny from Africa and has no weight to them comes to the United States and gains 40 to 50 pounds because the food here makes you fat. Okay? How you fix that is you refuse to buy those foods and you get organic stuff. Okay? And the companies will change because we make them and force them to change. If you want them to not, if you don't want to have unhealthy food, stop buying unhealthy food, right? Stop being so lazy. I can't buy any potato chips because they're all crap. Go and buy a potato and dehydrate it or bake it for yourself. Cut it up and bake it for yourself. There's not enough time in the day. It's because you're not organizing your day right. I'm a life coach. Cassie, who's also in the audience still, if she still is, she's also a life coach. She'll tell you the same thing. You don't have time for something in the day because you haven't made time for it, whatever it is in your life. If your life depended on it, you would change your entire life. No one changes their life until their life depends on it. And when it does, it's usually too late for you to change. If you get past your 40s and you don't change your life and you get into your 50s and 60s, it's almost irreversible, the damage that's been done in the first half of your life. So you've already cut down on the last 30 years of your life. Chances are you're not going to make it to 70 or 80 anyways. But you don't listen when you're in your 20s and 30s. You don't start listening until you get somewhere in your mid 30s to 40s. It used to be it took you longer with the processed foods, right? Right. Sorry, Cassie's saying a bunch here, and I'm trying to see what she's saying, right? She said, I love it. She said, lately, I don't know what that word is supposed to be. It's fee, F-I-E, what? So for my normal, I think she was trying to say, for my normal has had to change with these recent health issues. But even the healthy or homemade, I think that was supposed to be herbs, hers hurts me differently each time. She's typing and she's doing like Peter. Peter talks to his phone and sometimes it doesn't pick up his accent. Cassie doesn't. She has the same accent I have. She's from the same country that I'm in, and she only lives about maybe almost 1,000 miles away from me. She's halfway across the nation. 2 states over, 3 states over. Okay. Big states, because we're on the west. The further west you go in the United States, the bigger the states are. Right. So homemade, let's see, made different each time, trying to find the cause of the last 5 months has been dizzying. Laugh out loud would be a ton easier if I just asked the doctor for a pill for my symptoms, right? No, probably, but then they would have you on that, and you would have the pill, and you would have the whatever the side effect of that pill is that you would have to contend with. But I've been there, done that. She says that system, and I'm using my knowledge of the body, right? Yeah, in the mind to figure this out. Well, you have to. And it sucks. That takes a little bit longer. That's why I was saying earlier, it takes a little bit longer when you do it that way to get relief. But the relief that you're going to get is going to be permanent, not a temporary relief, because they're not giving you a cure. They're giving you a Band-Aid so that it relieves your symptoms. So you just feel good. You're still dying from whatever it is they're giving you a pill for. Slowly. You just don't know it because the pill makes you feel good. Okay. So they're not curing you. They're just allowing you to live with whatever that you have until you die from either complications due to that or complications created out of that down the road. Or you'll get cancer because you'll have all the inflammation and sugars in your body, and it'll activate the cancer cells, and you'll end up with cancer of something. Okay. Or what you don't know is that one of the side effects of the pharmaceutical drug that you're on could cause cancer in your liver or kidneys or somewhere else, stomach, intestines, and you end up getting cancer there because you took the same medication over and over for 20 years. Okay. So you have to look at the long-term effects of that sort of stuff, and it sucks. But in the long run, that short distance fight is more worth it than you realize. And you only realize that when you come out the other end. All right. Let's continue with a little bit more of the law of one before I got to go here.
Correct, but is a function of my extreme limitation in understanding the other densities and how they work. I am guessing that this particular entity is a member of the Orion Confederation and is possibly, or possibly not, incarnate in a body of the appropriate density, which I assume is the 5th. And by mental discipline he has been able to project a portion if not all of his consciousness to our coordinates, you might say. Herein it is possibly one of the 7 bodies that make up his mind/body/spirit complex. Is any of this correct, and can you tell me what is correct or incorrect about that statement? Ra, I am Ra. The statement is substantially correct.
Right, as Sherry said, that's right. Grow ginger, garlic, thyme, etc., and make broth with these to drink it and use the contents for cooking. I remember my first wife did that, where she would grow spices, and then I remember when I was working in construction and maintenance, my boss, she had one of those, I don't know what it's called, like an aviary window, to where it's recessed out in your kitchen, and it has a little dome that goes like this, that's glass or plastic, and so it's a shelf that sits kind of outside of your house, but it's completely enclosed in your house. And one day she cut herself at home. She went home to start something. It was on lunch, and she was starting to cook something for dinner that night. I think it was right around St. Patrick's Day, and she was starting to get that stuff going. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And she called me and said, "Oh my God, Leo, I cut my hand. I think I need stitches. You got to come help me." And I had jumped in the work truck and I rushed over and we had to take her to the hospital. She cut her hand and had to have stitches. But I noticed then that she had that in the window, and there were spices growing in the little planter box there, all these spices labeled that were growing there. And so she was, of course, afraid and in pain and scared that I had to, wrap her hand and then grab her and run her out into the work truck and get her to the hospital so she could get stitches. So I was talking to her about that. And when she was in triage, I was in there with her, called her husband and said, "I got your wife. She cut her hand. She's going to need stitches. She's okay. Don't worry. You can come here if you want." But I'm with her, and I got her, and she called me. And he got mad at her at one point and said, "Why'd you call Leo?" And she's like, "Because he was 30 seconds away." And I knew I needed to go to the hospital, and I didn't want to dial 911 because he could come get me to the hospital before the ambulance would even get here. And he was like, "Okay," because he's kind of jealous that you called. That's who you called. Just like, he was at the clubhouse. He was literally at our office, which is, he could have ran here and been here in like a minute. right? You would have had to have come here to get me, and I would have, I couldn't drive myself. I was scared and I was bleeding. So he laughed, and then he said he apologized for me for being that way and shook my hand and told me he was grateful. But to calm her down, I got into the conversation about the herbs and spices that she had growing in that little aviary there, and I said, or that whatever you call that little nook. And so, yeah, you can grow your own stuff. I try to buy organics because I don't grow them here, but I go to the store and I make sure you get the bottle that's organic, everything. So all the spices that I have, all the flavorings that I use are all organic, rosemary and thyme and all of that. It's all 100% organic. Even that, you can't guarantee they didn't put pesticides on it. The only way you can ever guarantee anything being 100% organic is to grow it yourself, right? So I like that, Sherry. I like that you do grow that stuff. Because that's the only way that you can guarantee the quality of anything is to do that. But they don't want you doing any of that. They want you buying their products, and they try to keep you from growing your own stuff in your backyards. Here in the United States, people haven't done that. It's rare that you find somebody that has a garden. We don't even call it a garden here. They've gotten that even out of the vocabulary. Over in Europe, at least in the UK, they still refer to it as a garden. In the United States, it's yard. Front yard, back yard, not a garden. We need to get back to calling it a garden here in the United States. When I was a kid, everybody grew. My mom had plants that she grew. We had vegetables and fruits that were grown, and we had a fruit tree. We had an apricot tree and a black walnut tree in the backyard. And my mom grew all kinds of stuff that she would go out and pick, and we would eat that stuff. And my grandmother was the same way. People were poor in the United States up until the 1970s, through the 1970s. And then when Reagan came into office in the United States, we became so prosperous that people got away from, because they didn't need that. They had more money, so more disposable income. So they started buying things in the stores. And that's when the companies really took over and started lobbying to keep people from growing the stuff in their own yard. Rich people do that still. Rich people have gardens. And that was my point of talking about Barack Obama's wife, Michelle Obama. The first thing she did was, those roses are useless. They look pretty, but they're useless. Get rid of them, and we're going to grow food out there. And I don't know if they still have done that. I don't know if Joe Biden came in there and gutted the place of the food and went back to growing roses. It's still called the Rose Garden, but I don't know if it's now a rose garden. Weirdly and oddly, it's still called the garden that the president moves into in their backyard, but they don't call it the White House backyard or the White House yard. They call it a garden. So weird rich people call it a garden because chances are they're growing their own stuff, right? So yeah, all right. So let me get back to doing this here so we get some more of this session, and we're obviously not going to finish the whole session. We'll get a few more questions in before I gotta go.
67.5 Questioner, would you rather not give me information as to the specifics of my statement? Ra, I am Ra. We did not perceive a query in further detail. Please re-question. 67.6 Questioner, which body, with respect to the colors, does the entity use to travel to us? Ra, I am Ra. This query is not particularly simple to answer due to the transdimensional nature, not only of space/time to time/space, but from density to density. The time/space light or fifth density body is used while the space/time fifth density body remains in fifth density. The assumption that the consciousness is projected thereby is correct. The assumption that this conscious vehicle attached to the space/time fifth density physical complex is that vehicle which works in this particular service is correct. 67.7 Questioner, I undoubtedly will ask several very uninformed and poor questions. However, I was trying to understand certain concepts having to do with the illusion, I shall say, of the polarization that seems to exist at certain density levels in the creation, and how can the mechanism of interaction of consciousness. It is a very difficult subject for me, and therefore I ask your forgiveness for my poor questions, but it seems to me that the fifth density entity is attracted in some way to our group by the polarization of this group, which acts somehow as a beacon to the entity. Am I correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is, in substance, correct, but the efforts of this entity are put forward only reluctantly. The usual attempts upon positively oriented entities or groups of entities are made, as we have said, by minions of the fifth density Orion leaders. These are fourth density. The normal gambit of such fourth density attack is the tempting of the entity or group of entities away from total polarization towards service to others and toward the aggrandizement of self or of social organizations with which the self identifies. In the case of this particular group, each was given a full range of temptations to cease being of service to each other and to the one infinite creator. Each entity declined these choices and instead continued with no significant deviations from the desire for a purely other self-service orientation. At this point, one of the fifth density entities overseeing such detuning processes determined that it would be necessary to terminate the group by what you might call magical means, as you understand ritual magic. We have previously discussed the potential for the removal of one of this group by such attack and have noted that by far the most vulnerable is the instrument due to its pre-incarnative physical complex distortions.
Okay, so before we go any further, right? Yeah, Cassie said, I put that up but didn't read it, right? Find the problem instead of just throwing pills at the symptoms that create more symptoms and add more issues. Yeah, so you have to become your own advocate and look into, like I said, figure out what it is that the pharmaceutical company, where they found whatever it was in nature that they're trying to synthesize for you, then look up in nature and find out what does that do for you. And if it does the same thing, then that means that your body's not going to reject it and it's not going to have side effects, or find out if it does. And then see, will it be as potent? Maybe not. But chances are it's going to be more potent, and chances are it's going to actually cure something as well. Because nature, you see, doesn't give you something that just masks something. It usually cures something. And if it doesn't, then it will still do the same thing the pharmaceutical drugs does for you while you look into what that is that's causing that, whatever the problem is, and then find the holistic cure for that. They don't want you knowing that about holistic stuff, right? So they don't want you doing that. Now, getting to what Ra's talking about right here, you hear them talking about somebody attacking people from the fifth density through what we call magic, because they're out of phase with this third dimensional illusion, this third dimensional reality. Fourth dimension is out of phase, but that's kind of pulling teeth right now, because we're moving very close to shifting into the fourth dimension, which changes what I had said earlier about you can't just jump over, but we're supposed to, this human species that's on this earth was supposed to already change to the fourth dimension thousands and thousands of years ago, 148 to 150,000 years ago. That was supposed to happen. And then if it didn't happen, then it was supposed to happen 77,000 years ago. And there was a turnover here at that mark, at the 77,000 year mark, where a lot of people did leave. But in this, since then, nobody has graduated. None, because they've been stuck. So because of that, it's going to be easier to move into that. And as we move into that, the other people who are not ready to move into the fourth dimension, they'll just continue to be living right alongside of us, because we're actually blending the two. And when they die in this life, as we get closer to that, they'll just die from natural causes of whatever happens to them in their life. They just won't reincarnate on this planet anymore. They'll start going to a different third dimensional planet, and they'll be veiled again, so they'll never know that they shifted to another planet. They'll just be born on another planet into whatever that third dimensional life form is on that next nearest planet that sustains third dimensional life, unless they're on their last life to be able to wake up enough to move into the 4D, and then they'll be born back here, and then they'll move into 4D. So there's not going to be this, like I say, I try to tell everybody this, there's not going to be this winking out of existence of hundreds of thousands or billions of souls on the planet. You're talking to somebody and just they're not there anymore. Oh, fuck, I'm one of the left behind. That's not going to happen. But the Christians are still trying to sell you on that. So Ra is literally talking about having Carla being attacked magically, psychically. Okay, so you have to realize that the modus operandi of those people who have tried to take over and stifled this place are third dimensional, fourth dimensional, and fifth dimensional. But the majority of them are in third dimension, less in the fourth dimension and far less in the fifth dimensional region. But they work together cross dimension. That's the temporal war. that most people don't even fathom is happening. So there's a war going throughout time and dimension concurrently, and has been for more than 77,000 years. Okay? People just don't know about it on the earth. Okay, let's continue here.
67.8 Questioner. In order for this group to be fully in service to the Creator, since we recognize this fifth density entity as the Creator, we must also attempt to serve, in any way we can, this entity. Is it possible for you to communicate to us the desires of this entity if...
Right. So, yeah, Sherry's saying this. See, Cassie, this is what I was meaning when I was saying that you get attacked and can cause the feeling of sickness. Yeah, coming from the fifth dimension or the fourth dimension, specifically the fifth dimension these days, because we're so close to the fourth dimension, but any psychic attack comes across the same way. And I taught that. I've been teaching this for 35 years about energy vampires. Okay, the whole idea of vampires came out of energy vampires. They just didn't understand it because there was life force they were taking from you. So they were assuming they were sucking people's blood because your blood has your life force in it. Okay. There might have been a time when they might have been trying to get the life force out of the blood itself and taking blood out of people. But they evolved to where they don't need to do that. Okay. People do it to you all the time. You just don't know what's happening. And it has the same effect on you, by the way. You feel sick. And this is what Sherry's talking about. Did I say Chandra before? I meant to say Sherry. If I said Chandra, I apologize. That's what Sherry's talking about. It gives you all of the physical attributes of being physically ill, being sick. You feel physically ill. You feel drained. You can get diarrhea. You can throw up. And when you go to the doctor, they're like, I don't know, you seem fine. Take this pill. You go to the doctor and they're like, maybe you picked up a cold, just to, let it ride it out. They don't know. And that's why a lot of what they say is the common cold. We have no idea what causes the common cold or what it really is. We just know the symptoms. Well, when you ask a doctor, they'll tell you that, and you know this, anybody who's had them look at you for autoimmune problems, you know that they will tell you that there's like hundreds of thousands of things that have all the same symptoms. And they say that you will feel the same way. And we have to weed all these things out by looking at them. And we can't know what it is until we start finding out what it's not. Unless you get lucky and the first couple of times you test something, you figure out what it is. But even then, they're going to have you test to make sure that it's not all these other things that could be detrimental. Okay. The fact that they don't know this is because the reason they don't know this is the fact that they don't believe in it. Okay. They don't believe in spirituality. Most doctors don't. Some are religious, but they don't teach spirituality, and they definitely don't teach cross-dimensional spirituality. In any religion that's been weeded out of those religions around the world. It's there if you read the Talmud yourself, if you read the Bibles yourself, it's in there for you if you have the eyes to see. Okay? But you won't hear a sermon in any church telling you about that. And if you ask them, they really won't interpret it that way either. So that's how people say, well, you guys are all just making that up. Weird that we're all making up the exact same knowledge. We're not borrowing it from each other, but that's the argument that they have for religions too. Well, this other one, when you point that out, this other religion says the same thing, and that one's older, so therefore this one must be copied from that. Because they couldn't have come to the same conclusion on their own. Because who does that? Nobody does that and comes to the same conclusion on their own. Isn't that what they're trying to teach us with critical thinking? Isn't that what they should be teaching us in life, is that we should be coming to the same realization of common sense that everyone else is coming to? So why is it that that's what they're trying to teach you until you start thinking that way, and then they tell you you're wrong when you start thinking that way, right? So you have to realize that they're trying to stop you. What is the one underlining factor? They're trying to stop you from critical thinking because they're telling you you don't have any common sense. It's only common when everyone has it. Okay? So you don't have any common sense. What is common sense? Commonsensical knowledge is being able to discern for yourself the difference between right and wrong. Why is it when I voice that opinion and I look at what the consensus is of what's right and wrong, why is it that I get doxxed and put in Facebook prison or some other prison for doing that exact thing that they're claiming that I don't do until I start doing it? And then they say I'm a conspiracy theorist and I'm making shit up. But if I don't do it, you don't have any common sense. But if I work under the premise of your definition of what common sense is and start applying that to my life, you then say that I'm wrong. But that's exactly what you're saying that is missing from the world. How can you say that the sky is blue, and then when I look up and go, you're right, the sky is blue, they go, no, it's not, it's purple. What the hell is your problem? How can you do that? That's what they're doing. And you don't know that as I kick my table and my camera shifts. And you don't know that they're doing that to you until you realize that. And that's when you start piercing the veil. The second that you will learn that about the world is the first second you start thinking for yourself when you start asking questions. Second, you question everything anybody says to you. And you don't believe anything that anyone says to you. That's when you start breaking your own conditioning. That's when you start breaking the conditioning from the matrix. That's taking whatever pill that's supposed to be. Is it the red pill is the good one? Whatever pill is the good one that doesn't put you back into the matrix. I think it's the red pill, right? Blue pill is the one that puts you back to sleep, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. I can't remember. I just watched the movie the other day. Can't remember. Whichever one it is that you take that makes you wake up to the matrix is questioning, learning knowledge for yourself. Because when you do that, you start gaining the same knowledge everyone else gains, whether you know them or not, whether you live in the same country with them or not, whether they're 400 years old or 10 years old or whatever it is. You start finding that there is a common knowledge that you gain when you decide to be in service to others, not in service to self, and in service to others. And then you start going, I call bullshit. I call bullshit. I call bullshit. Okay. I'm not sure that that's what's happening. I think it might be something different and we should look into that. When you start doing that and you start looking for yourself, specifically when you stop looking on the internet and you start going to this old building that's called the library and you start reading books that were printed before 10 years ago, instead of looking it up on the internet, you start realizing that there's knowledge that has been put in print that they haven't deleted yet and they haven't burned yet, which they're trying, that will really screw up your entire thought process of existence and get you looking at everything in the world and going, these people are lying about everything. I don't think they're telling the truth about anything. When you consider that there's people showing you, here's film footage of the weather today on this date in Sweden. And here's film footage of weather in Sweden from 40 years ago. Film footage of it. Side by side, or any country, but there's one that the guy does in Sweden, there's one that the guy does in America. Every country has somebody who does this. Here's actual film footage from 30 years ago of the same date and time in this country as today. And today they're telling you extreme weather, super hot or super cold, extreme weather today. And then when you look at it 40 years ago, it was all green. Just weather today was happening. And weirdly, it was colder on this day 40 years ago than it is today. And this one says extreme weather. Weather alert, extreme weather. Climate control is bad, and we're losing climate, and we're all going to die. And it was colder 40 years ago on the same day. Unless it was summer, then in summer, you find out that it was hotter on this day 40 years ago than it was on this day today. And this is extreme weather. Climate's changing. The planet is rising in the temperature, and we're all going to die. And 40 years ago, it was, in fact, 10 degrees hotter on that specific day than it is here. And that was all green and normal 40 years ago for the weather to be that temperature on that day. But now 10 degrees cooler than it was on that day, and it's extremely hot. And they're doing that everywhere on every news agency across the world. But you're unaware of it because you didn't track what the weather was 5 years ago, 10 years ago on this day. And it's hard for you because they're trying to scrub the place of that memory. Why would they be trying to not give you something to compare? Why is that? Wouldn't they want you to compare that to show that the temperature is rising globally and that they're global warming that they're saying? Wouldn't they be showing you that all the time? The global temperatures have risen over 5 degrees in the last 20 years. Really? So show me the temperature on this date 20 years ago and today to show me that it's 20 degrees hotter on average. They can't. But what they do show you is, here's the highs and lows. They do this in America. Here's the highs and lows. On this day, the high was set 40 years ago at 105, and today we're not going to beat that 105, but we're going to get real close to it. Pay attention to that. 40 years ago, on this specific day, it was 105, and that was considered normal back then. But now they're saying the temperature has globally gone up 10 degrees in the last 40 years, but today we're not going to reach the temperature that it was 40 years ago. So if global warming was actually happening, we should be hitting 10 degrees hotter than that day, and not being at 105, we should be at 115. But we're in fact only at 103 today. Do you see? But they say that to you, and you just go, wow, man, they're right. Temperatures are going hotter. Well, no, they're not. It's cooler than it was 40 years ago on this day when they set the record. So that means we haven't gone above 105 since 40 years ago. And today we're not going to go above 105. So if they're right about the global warming, we should be 10 to 15 degrees hotter on this day than we were 40 years ago, because they're telling us the globe is 10 degrees hotter than it was 40 years ago, but we're actually below the hottest day, which was 40 years ago, when they were claiming we were going into a global cooling phase and we were going to go into an ice age. Oops, I'm not supposed to remember that. Do you see? So when you see that, pay attention to what they're telling you, what the record is, and when, and oh, well, we're going to beat that record. It's hot. There's a comedian, this old guy, who says, I want to tell you guys about global warming. He says, ignore that. There's nothing about global warming. Let me give you a little secret. It's hot in the summer. And what's worse is some summers are hotter than others. He's telling the truth. Okay. So if they break a record, they make a big deal and they go, we just broke a record that's been sitting for 150 years. They never tell you that. They usually break a record that was broken about 10 years ago or 15 years ago. They want you to know that one. They don't want you to know that we just reached a milestone that we hadn't reached in 50 years, because that blows their theory out of the water that the globe is getting so much hotter. Well, wait a minute. So we're going into a global warming phase that's supposed to be so hot. How come we haven't broke that record that's still standing from 40 years ago? We should have broke that record a couple of times, don't you think? Never mind that now. Never mind that now. Extreme weather alert. So they tell you this stuff, and you got to realize you have to be in the adult. And you have to start looking at that, right? Right. Yeah. Now you guys are talking about, yeah, you have to detox your body. I'm taking black walnut right now as well, just to detox. You have to find the detox stuff and not buy the detox specifically, buy the individual stuff, because if you buy one of these, here's this super detox, look up the ingredients, you're going to find it has a bunch of crap in it that you don't need. Right? The things that you need for detoxification of your body is black walnut and turmeric. That's going to detox most of anything that's going to be in your body, including heavy metals. Okay? Just those two things. You can look this stuff up. You have to become holistic. This is why my first wife and myself wanted to open our own shop and sell this stuff, because between the two of us, we've done this for our entire lives. We still kind of talk about it. She's talking about right now going to a city down by where she lives, to maybe go into the shop to start working and doing Reiki and teaching in the shop, because she doesn't want to get nailed down to doing a lot of things working for somebody else. And she's trying to get back into this industry. And I keep telling her, do what you feel is right. She was talking to my brother, because they're talking in her church that she goes to. They're trying to get her to go to their seminary. And so she knows that my brother's in a theological college right now because he chose to. And he's going through that to have his license like me. And I can't wait for my brother to have his minister license, so that we have two of us in the family that are ministers. And she's been talking to my brother about that. And she said, well, I don't know if I want to do that, because I don't want to get locked down. Because I also talked to her and said, I even said this to my brother. They'll pay you to go to their seminary, but they want you to be and sell their religion. If you're going to be a theological scholar, you need to, if you want to be a theologian, you have to resist their brainwashing, because they're starting that with my brother, where they're teaching him basically Christianity is the best, is number one, and all other religions aren't true. And I'm like, Jay, you need to look at, if you're going to be a theological scholar, you're going to be a theologian, that means you need to know everything about, as much as you can, about all religions. Theology is the study of religion and spirituality. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of trying to prove Christianity is number one, you're going to see Christianity is number one because that's what you're trying to prove. If you're trying to figure out what motivated these religions and whether or not they're comparative, and if they in fact are related to one another or borrowed from one another, that is theology. Okay, it's like philosophy is to knowledge. When I was in philosophy in college, in Philosophy 101, the monk that was teaching me said that philosophy is a Greek word that means the love of knowledge or the knowledge of love. You look that up today and they don't say that. They say philosophy is the study of knowledge. But that's not the concept that it meant to the Greeks. And I've looked it up to find that out. So the concept of philosophy was the love of knowledge or the knowledge of love. That's what they taught. Knowledge was love. It was synonymous. There was no religion, spirituality, because they were the same. They were love. Now, religion is an industry, which is like a Starbucks or a Walmart or a Target. And spirituality is still spirituality. That's why I coined the phrase, religion recruits you, spirituality waits for you to find it. Spirituality still exists in the religions, but they don't teach it. They teach you the religion. They teach you how to practice their religion and like a drug addict or like a pharmaceutical company, how to come back to the church and have a relationship with God through the church. Come back here, give us your money, and give us your time and work for us. Do our job and feed us so that we sustain ourselves and don't have to go to work to get food, so that we can bring God to you. And they'll only teach you that. They're not going to teach you how to get to heaven. They're going to tell you, wait here. God's coming back for you in a bus. And if you're good, your name will be in St. Peter's book and you'll get to go to heaven. That's not what Jesus taught. That's not what any of those people in that religion before it became an orthodox Starbucks in a box was teaching you. They were teaching you how to reach up and find God to make it back to heaven, to make it there, to go there, to learn how to ascend. That's what they taught. That's what Jesus taught. And that's what Muhammad taught. That's what Moses taught. That's even what Daniel, Elijah, and everybody else in those three big religions of the Hebrew religion, the Christian religion, and the Muslim religion, and all the other spiritual practices of the East as well. Religion is something that was created by a human being on semantical ideas of how to worship that deity figure and their way of doing it. And if you don't do it that way, they kill you over it. Okay? And everybody else is wrong, and our way is the right way. That is created by humans. Okay? And for those of you out there who may have just tuned in and you hear me talking like this, know that I have 4 religious titles in 4 different religions on this earth. So I'm not coming at you from an atheist standpoint trying to prove one religion over another. I am a theologist. I'm a theologian, and I've just studied religion my entire life. And I have made sure to get 4 separate titles from 4 separate religions. And at some point, I may just go ahead and get titles from every religion that will allow me to do it. So that when someone says, you don't know what you're talking about, because if you were Hebrew, I'm a rabbi. Here's my license to be a rabbi. Okay? I haven't done that yet, but at some point I may do that just so that people can't say, you don't know what you're talking about in this religion. Really? Because your religion, the Orthodox one who is the entire religion that you follow, those people gave me documentation. Most people recognize that documentation. Okay? If you're a minister, you can call yourself a rabbi. There's just specifics, because rabbi just means teacher, by the way. Minister means someone who ministers, teaches the Eucharist. Father comes from wisdom and wise one who teaches. Okay? Father, you can't be called father because only the Catholics, you have to go to their seminary to get that title. But they give the title as a minister to all kinds of other people. You just can't use the title father. But you can use the title padre or any other title. You just can't use the title father because you have to go into their seminary to get that. And that's what other religions are trying to do. So you have to come to our seminary and go through our school, or you're not real. You're not legit. That's what colleges try to do with the lawyers. You go to these Ivy League colleges and it costs you $1 million a year to become a lawyer, and they act like somebody who goes to Cal Berkeley doesn't have the same law, the knowledge of law, and it's not as prestigious. Weird, because the bar exam in the state of California is the most stringent bar exam on the face of the planet to become a lawyer. So anyone who becomes a lawyer in the state of California is a better lawyer than anyone else on the face of the earth, because it's harder to become a lawyer in this state than anywhere else on the face of the earth. Okay. So it doesn't matter what college you go to in the state of California, you pass the same California state bar exam. And that is harder to pass than anyone else. Most of those people in those Ivy Leagues would fail the California bar exam. Okay, but they didn't fail the one that's there. But because of the name of the school, and rich people propagate the name of schools, you get a better job, and people think that you're a better lawyer because you went to Harvard or Yale or Brown or whatever the fuck the name of the best lawyer school in the Ivy League is. Doesn't mean that you're a better lawyer. Just means that somebody paid a good amount of money for you to get the title from that particular establishment. Doesn't make you better. Whether you're a good lawyer or not has to do with your personality and how much you actually learned, and whether or not you wanted to be good or if you just wanted the title. Okay, so it's personality is the difference. Okay, black seed oil is the same. Yes, black seed oil. I take. Turmeric comes usually when you buy turmeric. It is black seed oil, or you get it with black root oil or black seed oil. It's insane in so many things, right? So I do that, and I do the coconut oil too, the MCT oil. I give that to my mother as well because it helps with the cognitive abilities. So I take the omega-3, 6, and 9s, the MCT oil, the turmeric or turmeric, however you say it, and now I take the black walnut. And the black seed oil is that's usually when you take turmeric, it comes with the black root or the black pepper oil mixed in with it, but you have to buy it that way. But yeah, that stuff's insane. It's good for almost everything. Detoxes so much stuff, right? People's heads look like they didn't fit with their body, or what is that? Departed entirely. What is that? I spoke with a man who was was nervous about fixing. During my fight or flight, I was stuck in for 6 months after experiencing a double armed robbery. Oh, well, yeah, trauma will kind of put you into different places. I tell people about like horny goat weed and St. John's wort and stuff like that are mood enhancers that help with even people who are manic can take St. John's wort, and it'll either push them manic one way or the other, or it'll help them. A buddy of mine had issues, and he was very narcissistic and didn't like the way St. John's wort made him think, because it allowed him to hear his conscience. So when he took St. John's wort, he would think about doing something evil, and then he would hear his own thoughts go, don't do that. You wouldn't want that if somebody did that to you. Think about how they feel if you do that to them, how you would feel. And he didn't like the fact that he had those thoughts, so he stopped taking it, because he liked being a narcissist. So it had already changed his brain to the point where his brain had shifted so that he was hearing the evil voice and not the conscience anymore. So he had gone down the dark path, and it was already stifling the conscience from talking. And that's what happens when you go down that dark path. You lose your conscience, goes away eventually, and you hear more of the ego. If you go down the way of being in service to others, your ego diminishes and your conscience becomes more your consciousness, and the good thoughts become more prevalent to you. That changes. The chemistry in your brain changes by that path that you choose, and you will hear less of the other side. As you ascend in service to others, you start to lose the ego, and you don't hear it as much anymore. If you are, in fact, in service to self, the ego merges with your personality, and you stop listening to or hearing the conscience say, don't do that. You don't give a shit about that anymore. You tune it out, and that ego merges with who you are. So you will merge with one of those choices. That's why the Native Americans say, which wolf do you feed? You become which wolf you feed. They were a little more on point. You become that personality, which side you feed, which choice. They were more on point with the natives of the reality of you become which wolf you feed. Where with us, and even Carl Jung was shadow work and non-shadow work, still middle of the road. And then even Freud called you the id, like it's a separate character in your brain that is not your persona, that is not your personality. But I think he might have been just trying to issue it a name. But people, they don't acknowledge that they are the when they say I'm not the thinking mind, they don't acknowledge I am not the ego. I am not we don't teach I am not the ego. I am not the conscience. I am not the thinking mind. We don't teach you that other part of ignoring the conscience, because you want to become that example of yourself, because all of those are you. They're aspects of you, and you have ego and you have the conscience. And most people only talk about the ego. They don't talk about the conscience whatsoever. Even not talking about it as a separate entity, they ignore it and pretend it's not even there. Most spiritualists will warn you about ego and that you're trying to ascend away from ego, but they'll never tell you its counterpart, which is the conscience, not your consciousness. You are the consciousness. You have two voices in your head, positive and negative, ego and conscience, that will say when you go to do something, I think I'm going to rip this thing, I'm going to steal this candy bar. Unless you've already made that choice, you'll hear both. The ego will say, I want to steal this candy bar. And then the conscience will say, no, don't do that. Your conscience will go, don't do that. What if you get caught? It's wrong to do that. It's going to cause problems, and they're going to raise the prices of the candy because of that. Somebody's going to get in trouble. Somebody gives you back too much change. You know they gave you back too much change. You have a decision to make. The decision process that happens in your brain is conscience, ego. The ego says, I can keep this money. I should keep this money. They're charging high prices. Fuck them. I'm going to keep this money. Your conscience will say, that cashier is going to get in trouble because you don't tell them this. They're going to be short that money, and someone then might fire them if they've made this mistake before. Unless you've already moved down the road of your listening to your ego and you don't hear the conscience anymore, then you're going to go, fuck them, put it in my pocket. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to hear both of those entities. Okay? And people will tend to want to believe that the ego is separate from themselves, but they'll never think that there's a conscience that could be separate from themselves, weirdly. But then they don't acknowledge, and that's the problem, that those are both you. The ego is you. But I am not the thinking mind, and I am not the ego, because I am the experiencer that's above that. The ego, the conscience, and the thinking mind is a construct that is here to assist me in this place and my choice of life path. Once you make that choice and you go down that road, if you go down being in service to others, you will notice that the ego will still try to convince you to move away from it, but you'll have an easier time ignoring the ego the more you go down that path. The other way happens as well. You have an easier time ignoring the conscience. Going down the dark path, when you start going down the dark path, forever it'll dominate your destiny. When you start going down the light path, forever it'll dominate your destiny. Once you make that choice in life, it becomes easier to walk that path, because you're now focusing on becoming and merging with that positiveness, or you're focusing on becoming and merging with that negativeness. Okay. I was nursing with the elderly. This is Sherry saying this. I was nursing with the elderly when this happened only 2 years ago. A woman lost her like, and many people, I'm not sure, I think you were trying to say life, and many people were also hurt on his spree. I'm not sure what you're saying here. Let me read in case I missed something. A woman lost her like, and many people were also hurt on his spree, I believe, trying to save her, and couldn't. That when referring to the black seed oil, my brain fixed my whole personal trauma. I saw my client's head either not fitting to the body, or just, I was trying to figure that out earlier when I read that, or no body. The black seed oil had and has been fixing that. Oh, okay. So I think that was you trying to figure stuff out, but the black seed oil actually helped you to okay. So I was trying to figure that out, what you were trying to say even before when I read it. So that you'll find, getting back on point with that, you'll find that the holistic stuff, when you find that you have issues with things going on, if you research holistic things, you'll find, and if you talk to people that know stuff, they'll tell you stories like that. So then you can look up these things and say, what do they do? What are the properties? And what do they do for the body, or what do they do for the mind, or what do they do for the thinking? Because sometimes we have traumas that we need to get past. That's what we carry within ourselves, are traumas. And those traumas hide deep within us, but they're still there because the body records everything as now with the full emotional attachment to it. And then it suppresses it to keep that away from that memory, away from you, because you don't want to deal with it. So your body suppresses it, but eventually it wants to put that back out there. It wants to come out. It needs to come out because the body is designed to give it to you, because that's what it's supposed to do. So then at the wrong time, something will trigger the body to go, remember this? And it'll throw it up in your face. And that's a trigger that will freak you out, because then all of a sudden the emotion of that moment comes back exactly the way it happened to you when it happened, because the body doesn't understand that that was a long time ago, because it's not, its job isn't to make those determinations. The body is just supposed to record everything as now. That's what it goes into your Akashic records that way. It goes into the records that everybody in the universe can eventually access and live through vicariously, to witness in its raw organic form. So it's recorded 3 times, one by you, one by your body, and one by the Akashic record as third person. Okay. 3 times for everything. And then it goes into the records. People access those and they live them either in third person or first person, or from the body's perspective, or they take it all on at one time to relive what you lived and to experience it exactly the way you did. So they become you and relive that moment. So the problem is when we're dealing with things that our body has put in recess, or put into hid from us, or suppressed from us. When that comes up, it comes up with all of the emotional attachment, all of the feeling, all of the ickiness of the exact moment that it happened to you. And that's hard because you've been trying to keep yourself from dealing with it since it happened to you. So when that comes back up, you're there. Whatever age you were, you're there as that, because that's what it's coming through as, and you're seeing it in your memory like it happened just now, live, all over again. That's hard to get through. And once you do that, it becomes easier, because then you deal with that emotion. And then the next time you think about that memory and your body accesses it and puts it up to you, it's not as scary. But you have to then move forward through that and get through it, and then realize you survived it to begin with, and that you're a survivor, right? So here's Junior, welcome, right? Cassie said, I'll bet others in the group would love to join us too, and we could help. So yeah, anybody that's in the group while we're still here live, anybody that's live right now, if you guys want to join the Law of One chat, the Law of One class chat, we have a chat on Messenger where when I'm not live, you can talk to everybody individually or in a group or the whole chat. And then you can work with people, one-on-one. If you want to join that chat, we love to have people in there, because we all talk to one another 24 hours a day, because we're from all around the world, and we share things with one another and work with each other and support each other. And then anybody that needs any kind of more knowledge or anything else, we can answer these questions that I'm talking about and other people are talking about here on the live. So if you're not on Messenger or you don't have Messenger, it becomes a little more difficult, but you can contact us and we can still work with you, because this is what we do. But anybody who's here that's already in the message here, either on Facebook or YouTube, if you want, say something in the chat now. Cassie, who is in the group right now, and Peter, who was here, are both admins in the group. They're my co-runners of the group, right? The group of us are doing this and moving forward and helping people, and have been teaching and guiding people for a long time. And ask anybody that's here on this live if you're, because Penny's here, and I don't know who else is here currently. I have to go back up in the scroll here and find out that we work with people to help you, to give you this knowledge, to help you through these different things, to help you, to guide you into the right places. So if you want to join that chat, let us know. Cassie can get you in there in the chat. And then from there, you can ask whatever questions that you want in the chat to whoever's there. And the people who best know those knowledges, or everybody, will say, this is what I know, this is what I know, this is what I know. And then sometimes people will just give you links because they'll look it up and go, this is what I found. And then you can figure out a lot more stuff. And if you're in a spiritual place or a place in your life where you need guidance, this is what we do, is we help you guys. This is what we do, right? We're not doing this charging anybody. Eventually, we're going to be charging the world to be speaking in front of people about all of this. Right now, we're trying to help people, without doing that as much as we can. But at some point, we have to make a living too. So at some point, we're going to be more in demand to do this. And when we get to that point, we'll have to start quitting jobs for the mundane and start making money to survive. So we'll have to then start charging people to speak in front of them to help them. But for now, we're doing it as much as we can, as long as we can, for free. For those of you who want to have some guidance, or just somebody to talk to that's not thinking you're crazy, right? And hang out with other people that are not thinking you're crazy, instead of going to a group where people are screaming past each other and that's about it. You know what I mean? Because that's what goes on in a lot of those groups, unfortunately. Right. So anybody that I missed, right? Cassie said, welcome, Junior. Is there somebody that you're talking to? Was there somebody's name, Junior, that I didn't see? I don't see anybody called Junior. So I don't know if you're saying that. But anyway, so yeah, right. So I'm going to do a commercial because I haven't done a commercial. I haven't paid the bills all day for my book. I'm going to do a commercial for my book, and you guys can figure that out if you guys want to try and get into that group. Let Cassie know in the chat, and then she can get you into the group over there. But in the meantime, which commercial do I want to do here? I'll do the short one here. Let's do this one. No, let's do this one.
What is the reality about reality? Returning to the Old Ways. It is a comprehensive book about what is really going on here on this planet. It talks about the true spirituality that the controllers who think they own this planet have been keeping from you for thousands of years. It explains to you the knowledge that you gain from the universe itself when you live the way the prophets of the world throughout time told us how to live. Eat right, meditate, take care of yourself, treat others right. All the things they originally told us to do, but the controllers have removed from right in front of our eyes. The way to ascend to heaven. The reality about reality. Returning to the Old Ways. On sale worldwide online.
Okay. So I'm going to have to go because now it's 6:30. I was talking longer than I wanted to. I got to get my mother in the shower, and then I got to get dinner for us. But we're having leftovers, so I was able to talk a little bit longer, but I probably should have got off here about a half an hour ago. Yeah, I usually do, promote my book, pay the bills at the beginning of the show, middle of the show, end of the show. I didn't do that today. So most people will never see that commercial unless you're here for the very end, or you tuned in around the world in the MP3 broadcast at the very end. But my book is out there for sale all over. And it is about what you heard on that commercial right there. It's about the knowledge that there's a group of people on this earth that is keeping the knowledge from you. And it's the theme that Ra was telling about 40 years ago for the Law of One. And it's the theme that I've been teaching since before I ever heard of the Law of One. I didn't hear about the Law of One until 2017 and have been teaching it pretty much ever since. But everyone on the earth is aware of this, especially the further back you go. There's a group of people that have been hiding a knowledge from you and are doing it right in front of your faces currently today. And everything that I've talked about today has to do with that. And everything that Ra talked about has to do with that. That's what Ra was warning about, that there's this evil group of people on this earth that are literally stifling you and not allowing you to know a knowledge that's right in front of your face. And you can learn that knowledge because it is universal. And all you have to do is start your ascension process. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. And if you don't know of the trap, you'll never be able to avoid it. And you have to know where to look. You'll have to know what the trap looks like. And all of that is there. You just have to start finding that. You'll never find it living in the flesh. You'll never find it being in service to self, because that knowledge does not exist for those people to learn. And they don't care because they're about money, power, fame, likes, clicks, and power. Power, 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 money, 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 legacy, 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 all those things that are physical. Only the people who are becoming service to others can learn this knowledge. And those are the only people that get to ascend, to the proverbial heaven, because the other people are never leaving this place. They're always going to recycle here. They're going to move up into the fourth. They're going to move up into the fifth and halfway through the sixth. And then they're never going to be able to go any higher than that. They're just going to be living in more and more evil worlds and more evil realities until there is no one else left but the evil people themselves, preying on each other until they get tired of doing that and then say, what can I do that can change so that I don't have to have this for the rest of my existence? And that is what they talk about as hell. That is what they talk about as the purgatory. There is a place. It is a reality that people go to and live in. And it starts here when you make the choice. So if you're in service to self, that's the only future that you have. And they don't want to believe that. And I don't care. I don't care, because everybody has a choice. They can believe whatever it is that they want. I know the way it actually is. So whether people who are in service to self want to believe it or not, don't care. If they've chose to be in service to self, they'll eventually, it might take them a million years, they will eventually realize the truth of their existence. I'm not here as the Savior. I'm not here to replace Jesus. I'm not here to become another Jesus. Okay? I'm not here for that. I'm here to restore the natural balance to this ecosystem and to assist anyone who wants to know the knowledge and how to unlock that knowledge. I don't own it. I don't own it. No one else does either. Okay? It is a knowledge that is freely given from the universe itself. You don't know that because the knowledge of that has been taken from you. Okay? And there are those of us here that are restoring that to you. There is a knowledge that you gain that they can't stop you from gaining once you go down that path. They cannot stop you. They have to try and kill you so that you reset and don't know the knowledge is there, so they can keep you not looking at it. That's all they can do. That's all they've ever been able to do. Nowadays, they can't kill you as easily when they identify you. And that's why so many people are waking up, because so many of us have gotten here to make that happen, because we're giving back the balance that it's there for you to find if you know where to look. Some of us can tell you that. Millions of us can tell you that. 1,000 years ago, there would have been 3 people on the planet that can tell you that. Today, millions, if not billions. Soon, billions. By 2050, there will be billions of people on this earth who will be awake enough to tell you what I'm telling you now. 40 years ago, there was hundreds of thousands of us. Now there's millions of us that are saying the same thing I'm saying to you. Okay? We're out there. We're fixing this place. We're restoring the balance, whether they like it or not. There's only 14% of them. And out of that 14%, only 1% is owning and operating all of the evil that's controlling the world. That's it. All the rest of you that are evil out there, you don't get a piece of that pie. You know it. And it pisses you off, but there's nothing you can do about it because they're keeping you down along with the rest of us. Okay, guys, I love you guys. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. I'll see you guys next week. I will be back for those of you who are going to be on Wednesday of next week. I will be back to do the Q&A that I do off camera, that is not recorded and not live. For anybody who has spiritual questions that want to pop into the Zoom call, the only place that you can get that, unless you contact me personally, is in the Law of One class chat on Messenger. I put the link in there. So if you want to ask questions, you either have to contact me personally on Messenger or by some other email or something else to ask me questions. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, I'm on all the platforms. Find me on there and contact me there if you want to ask questions. Otherwise, if you want to ask questions on the Wednesday, contact me either there or get into the Law of One class chat on Messenger. There's a lot of places called the Law of One that are chat, but the only one that's called the Law of One class chat is the one that we created specifically for this class that I teach on this podcast on Fridays for a discussion. And I give the link there to the Zoom call for anybody who wants to ask questions. You'll be there with other people, but that won't go out to the world. That doesn't go out live. So any question that you're afraid to ask on the live show or you don't get answered on the live show, you can either contact me personally and ask the question or do it on that Wednesday. Cassie, when she feels better, is going to be doing another day. I think she was going to do it on a Sunday, to where she's going to be doing something, either meditations and leading people there, or chakra balancing, or I don't know what she's decided. She's in here. You can ask her. She's still toying with where she's going to go down that road. She is a life coach. She is a spiritual life coach. She is a healer. She has all of these skills. She just hasn't been able to get herself into a fully and sustained, healthy place because she keeps, getting sick. People are getting COVID. We're going into winter now here in the United States, so people are getting COVID more often and junk like that. So she's been having issues and autoimmune problems that most of us wanderers go through that we have to fight off every now and then. So she hasn't been able to do that, and she's been wanting to for like the last month, but she hasn't been able to. So she'll get to that place, and she'll be doing that as well. Peter too, but I'm working with Peter. I have to work with him. Peter, I haven't forgotten you. If you're still listening, he probably has a gig, so he probably left. But I got to work with Peter and get him fixed. He's got some balance issues that he needs work on, so I'm going to work with him on that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys back here on next Friday, or I won't see you at all because you only listen on the MP3 broadcast. And I love you guys, and I know that you're out there around the world. I know that there's 70 countries that listen to my podcast. I know you guys are there, and I love you guys out there who listen to me that don't come into the MP4 broadcast. It's okay. You don't have to. I don't do this specifically for that. I do this so that the knowledge is being shared with you guys around the world. So I love you guys out there. I'm aware of it. I track it on the different platforms that I post that on that go out to you guys, so I know what countries you're in. I used to give you guys a shout out every week. I'll maybe start getting back to that. I just haven't for a while. I love you guys. I'll see you guys either in the chat. I'll see you guys either on Wednesday, or I'll see you guys on next Friday, or I won't see you, but I'll still be speaking to you guys worldwide. And I love you guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend.